right, is that smart now looking back on it? But I'd do it again. I'd be the same thing, because I'm like, I'm not going out. I'm not going off this field unless they have to carry me off here. And then put mine up there, and it's like, oh my God.
There's a few gaps.
Looks like someone used it as a punching bag, right?
There's the critical voice kind of chastising you for having the anger. And then there's an awareness voice kind of looking at everything going, man, something ain't right.
Veteran who ended up taking his life said, no one wants to commit suicide. They want the noise to go away.
Hello and welcome. I'm somewhere in the Lake Tahoe vicinity, sitting with Robert Gallery. This is Hidden Pearls podcast, and so we thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Bruce Kittle, so appreciate you being here. Well, I'm just going to say thank you, Robert, to hosting us as we get going. So we've got we've kind of talked about a whole thing, and before we get into the bios and all that kind of stuff, I thought we'd just do a little bit of 3 breaths just to kind of get grounded and all that kind of stuff. So if you're sitting at home and want to join us, you sure can, but we're just going to do that. So we're going to inhale through the nose, hold for just a count, and then nice slow exhale out through the mouth. And as you're settling in, just kind of feel your feet grounded to the earth, through your hips, seats, in the chair if you're there, wherever you're sitting, just kind of reattach the body as we take these breaths. So today our conversation, at least in my hope, is we're going to look at some stuff that's really painful for a lot of people, and it was painful for Robert as he was going through these things. So we're really grateful about him sharing his story. But this story is really about coping with transitions and finding a healing path for yourself and for those that you love. And then how do you maximize your life as we go through that process? And so staying connected to breath, being aligned in our body, being in balance, connected to universal source as you understand it. And of course, the Earth Mother who grounds us and holds us all the time. So we'll take those 3 breaths and just kind of feel yourself kind of connected. So we're going to inhale. And nice and slow up. Just as you're exhaling, just kind of letting go of whatever else you might be holding on to. And exhaling out. Just feel your body, feel your heart, feel the sensations running through, feel the energy. One more. And we'll let that go. All right. Robert, thank you.
Good stuff.
Okay, man. All right. So I'll script a little bit. So we're welcoming Robert, and I just have to open. So we've been a Robert Gallery fan forever, ever since he came to Iowa. So as you know, our story, George and my story, all come back to Iowa as well. So way back in the day, under Hayden Fry, we won a Big Ten championship, went to the Rose Bowl. And that was the first winning season in 20 years. And then Robert came along, and incidentally, we were just talking about it beforehand, is my senior year was Kirk Ferentz's first year at Iowa as an assistant, and he was our offensive line coach. And I don't think it was any kind of accident that was the year that we actually started winning games, between that and Barry Alvarez and Dan McCartney and all those guys. But anyway, and so we went through all that, and then Robert, when he got there, he was part of Kirk's very first recruiting class. And so just a lot of kind of interfaces with that. The one story I just want to tell as we get going, and we'll throw a picture up on it, is when George was really little and after we'd moved back to Iowa City, you were playing at Iowa. I don't know the exact year of it, but somewhere in that career. And George is like 7 or 8, pretty little. I showed you the picture. So anyway, and I guess, and we talked about it earlier, but I guess I wanted to share the story that autograph and that time that you spent with him left a really profound impact on him. And I think people don't always appreciate that. So George is one of the players, and everybody's different, so this is not a knock on anybody, but he's always worked really hard to try to do as many autographs as he can and return stuff and all that kind of stuff. Because I know no player to be named, but one of his all-time favorite players never wrote him back, never signed his jersey, never did anything. But you stopped, and it left that mark on him, and that he's always talked about, that he's never forgotten what it felt like for what he thought was one of the greatest heroes of his time to come over and, to be, and actually look him in the eye and give him, 2 or 3 minutes and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to say that, it's those kind of small moments of kindness, that we don't always appreciate. But anyway, so that story kind of, I don't know, if it felt kind of like,
and I remember that because, it was part of my life experience. My brother Nick, played at Iowa before me. So I was a young kid down there getting autographs, and I remember how big of a deal that was to a young kid. We went when Nick was in camp with the Chiefs. It was when Derek Thomas was there, and he took time, right? So I remember, I don't remember specifically him, but I'd stand there for an hour afterwards because I'm like, I can't let these kids down. I was that kid, right? So I appreciate the story, and the picture's awesome. We were both, both of us so young.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, back in the day. So anyway, so just thank you for that, because I think those moments kind of set people up for success. And so that's, just those, you just never know exactly how one contact can change things, which I think will be part of this story as well, kind of some of those. So, okay. So, let's see. We did that. So I have a little bit of a bio I took from your website, and then we're going to unpack some other stuff. And I told Robert, I know you're kind of over the Iowa days, but I'm just such a huge, particularly offensive line fan. I can't not at least touch on it. So we're going to
part of all of our lives. So
I know, man. It's just like it's a football family. Yeah. So, all right, Robert Gallery is a College Football Hall of Fame inductee coming out of the University of Iowa 2004 NFL Draft, selected as the number 2 overall pick. That was so awesome. I still remember the day. He played 8 seasons before announcing retirement in August of 2012, I think, right? Okay. Today, and it's one of the reasons that we're here, not the only, but a really powerful one. He's leading a movement for mental health, athlete wellness, and access to psychedelic-assisted therapies through raw, honest storytelling and unwavering leadership. From his roots in small-town Iowa to the national spotlight of the NFL, Robert's journey has been defined by courage, resilience, and a relentless pursuit of growth, both on and off the field. That is a mission statement that all of us should embrace. So kudos on that. I want to touch on a couple things that you're doing, and then we're going to unpack some of these things as we go. Co-founder and CEO of Athletes for Care. So we're going to talk a lot about that as a vehicle really for other people to join us, because we're hoping to support you as well as you take that message out and really advocating on behalf, particularly athletes, but also veterans, issues around mental health and maybe alternative remedies that can really make a difference in somebody's life. So, supporting athletes through mental health and alternative therapies, mentor and coach at North Tahoe schools. Good for them. Empowering youth through sports and life lessons, which we're going to get to. And then supporting veteran exploring treatment solutions, vets. And then I think just yesterday you were at the DAV, Disabled American Veterans Association. So working a lot with veterans, which has been a strong link for us as well. So really resonate with that. Advocating for access to breakthrough therapies. And also we'll talk a little bit about why some of those are not being adopted and some of the things going on. Advisor and advocate for the Texas Ibogaine Initiative. A lot going on there. So there'll be links in the story so you can check all that out, and helping expand access to healing for those in need. But most importantly, his greatest role is husband to Becca, who's a former U of I women's basketball player. So you and George both share that.
Yep.
So
the universe has come full circle, right? That's stuff I learned through this process. Is there's a lot of these connections, right? There's so many connections that bring us, why we're sitting here.
Yeah, for sure. Which is really fun. So that's pretty cool. And father to 3 kids, Aiden, Brooklyn, and Lincoln. So, Robert, we just thank you for being here for the show and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, I gushed on a lot. We're going to just touch a little bit on growing up in Iowa, but anything you want to jump in on right there, or are we all good?
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved where I grew up. Masonville, Iowa was our little hometown. I grew up on a farm. My high school is in Winthrop, Iowa. But I love everything about Iowa. I don't live there now, but I love where I grew up. I love the environment I grew up. Had loving parents. Grew up as a farm kid and learned so many of these life lessons started on that farm with that, my family of 7, and so that's where the core of all this started. And then the people added things as the years went by.
For sure. Okay. So a core lesson. So when you left home to head to the University of Iowa, what would be 1 or 2 core lessons that your family kind of taught you? Just as that upbringing.
Yeah, I think the major one was just hard work, right? Just, my parents, my mom was a nurse, and my dad was a farmer, and my mom helped on the farm, but the farm life, right? There's stuff to do every day, right? And it's the lessons of, us as kids picking up rock, right? Walk behind a tractor. Dad would be in the tractor. We'd walk behind a tractor. He'd be pulling a wagon, walking through the fields, picking up, rocks that were bigger than this size because they would get sucked up in the combine. So just, those lessons of just hard work, not complaining about it. That's just what you had to do, right? That's what we had to do to survive on the farm. So I think the biggest one for me and watching my parents was that aspect, hard work, put your head down and go to work.
Right. Can't cheat the grind.
You can't. It'll be there the next day and it'll be double, so that's
100%.
Watching them, it was like, okay, this is how they go about life, and their livelihood. And so I adopted that in sport. And I think it helped me, as time went on.
Okay. And there were 5 kids?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And where are you at in that?
I was second to the youngest. Yep. So, my sister was in the middle, between the middle of the 5, and I was second to the youngest.
Okay. All right. So, okay. Well, let's jump in. We just do this. So this is the Iowa bio off of the Hall of Fame thing. So I love this one. So it's all great. So anyway, another one. Robert was a consensus All-American recipient of the Outland Trophy awarded to the nation's best interior lineman. That was so awesome too. I can't tell you, that was so great. He was a 2-time first team All Big Ten honoree, leading Iowa to the Big Ten Conference title in 2002, appearances in the 2003 Orange Bowl and 2004 Outback Bowl. Hawkeyes were 21-5 over Gallery's final 2 seasons, finished both years ranked 8th in the Associated Press. He was selected 2nd overall by the Oakland Raiders in the 2004 draft. We said that. Okay. So I'm just going to buzz through these years and we'll just kind of do a little recap. But I think it's really cool that you were there. And again, no coincidence, as Kirk took over and kind of getting things going. And we experienced that when Hayden came. So he was at the end of my sophomore year, and they always kind of say it's 3 years before you kind of start doing things. And that was kind of the truth for us. And I think that was kind of here too. So 1999, you came in with Kirk first year, team goes 1-10 and you redshirted. Okay. So is what it is. So we're kind of building the stables up.
Yep.
All right. 2000, fall of 2000, started career as a redshirt freshman tight end. So we have a little bit more overlap, right? And so were you primarily tight end in high school? I
was, tight end and linebacker, but I was primarily, I had never played offensive line in high school. I was strictly a tight end defensive end.
Okay.
Yep. So till I got down there, but I knew the writing on the wall. They recruited me as an athlete. I wasn't, in the book, I was in a position. I was a 6'7", when I came to Iowa, 6'7", 230-pound kid with massive frame. I just wanted to play football. I didn't care what position it was, but that first year and the first few games of my second year, I started out at tight end and then made the transition.
Yes. All right. The universe knows. Okay. I don't know. I told George too, maybe the last couple of years, if he can't run in as well, it maybe slips inside.
Slide down a little bit.
Anyway, there's some great stories about people that do that. All right. Rest of the old line, started the final 6 games or played at right tackle, and the Hawks went 3-9, edging it. Okay. So there we go. Year 3, 2001. Now the transformation really begins as you started all 12 games at left tackle. And then this is the one, I kind of forget this, contributing to an offense that led the Big Ten Conference in scoring with 32.6 points per game. 32.6 points per game. I got a W2F after that one. What the hell?
Yeah, you kind of forget. I forgot about it till I saw that in your notes. But that's kind of, like you said, the third year, that's when things started working in the system that was put in. And, I didn't recall that we had done that year.
You guys were a scoring machine.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it gets more the next year. So finished 7-5, 19-16 win over Texas Tech in the Alamo Bowl. So we're back in the winning columns. All right. Year 4, 2002, junior year. Started all 13 games at left tackle, named first team All Big Ten selection. And then the point total. Iowa's offense ranked 7th in the nation, averaging 37.2 points per game, and led the Big Ten for a second straight season. That, again, I totally, it's like, I don't know. And I haven't really paid a lot of attention over the last few years, but there was a gap, time in there. It was kind of painful. So.
Yeah, no, and we forget, we had some dogs on that team.
Had some real dogs, I know.
Bruce Nelson, Eric Steinbach. Our offensive line, Brad Banks, a quarterback.
Yeah.
You think about that year, and we'll go into there is one regret of that year, but we were good. It was running back. Every position on the offense,
was a dude.
It was a dude. Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I remember going to the game. So it was super cool. All right. So let's see, 11-2, winning the most games in program history, claimed Iowa's first Big Ten title in 12 years, appeared in the Orange Bowl, and notched to number 8. So who'd you guys play in the Orange Bowl? Because it was we lost that, right?
USC.
Yeah, USC in the Orange Bowl, right? Remember.
And the story with that year was the other loss was to Iowa State.
Oh, right.
Right. And so we lost that. So if we, we didn't show up to play and lost that. And so I go back to, right, if we would have had it together, right, that I'm sure it shaped the rest of our season after that loss.
Yeah.
But I also, the regret part is like, hey, that's a year we could have run the tail. We could have been undefeated going into that bowl game. And then, we ran into a buzzsaw in the bowl game, and, I have my opinions about that, but,
this is a format for your opinions, Robert. So anytime you want to let go,
I think it was, and not naming names, and, we're all, woulda, coulda, shoulda 25 years later,
sure.
But, it was it was obviously we're on a huge stage, right? We had built the program back up, the year before Alamo Bowl was great. We're in Texas, we're 7-5 year, right? That year we were, a well-oiled machine, right? And we were talking about that line, that offense, get to Miami, and a lot of guys were enjoying, right? As you should at a bowl game. Right. But I remember sitting in the cold tub. Coach Doyle went to, Lowe's or Menards somewhere and got tubs. Cause I'm like, hey, it is hot here. My legs aren't recovering. Can you get us tubs? So we got ice tubs. And I just remember thinking in there, man, I'm like, I hope we don't, right? Because I'm a guy that has to stay very focused on what we're doing. I can't almost enjoy the other stuff because
no Miami Vice for you.
Right. And I thought, oh, that's right, guys are having fun. We're doing this, but I'm like, man, we gotta win this game. We can, right, against a great USC team. So I thought it was like some of the, Miami Vice beach, all the beach stuff going on. But hey, that's part of life. You learn a lesson from it. But I was like, I wanted to go in, right? And Kirk adapted to that years after. Was like, hey, this is a business trip, right? Like we all, because we pull in and it's a big party thing, right? It is. It's, we're 11-1 at the time, right? It's like, we're in the national spotlight and people will do this. But that's the one regret I have. I wish we would have buckled down, partied afterwards, or enjoyed the time afterwards. But that's such is life.
There you go. It's interesting because as the stage gets bigger and higher, like those smaller little things, which you might have gotten away with at the Alamo Bowl, right? You know what I mean? Because of that, the margin of error is so small.
Absolutely. And that's the stuff in the moment, you don't think about that. You don't think about, oh, this is going to affect me 20 years later, right? And thinking we're young kids. Right. And coach did a great job of trying to keep, but it's for me, it's like you learn as an adult and a parent, like, hey, if we stay, let's change the itinerary and stay 3 days afterwards and do the beach day and do all that stuff afterwards. Right. And I know that's not how it works, right? With corporate sponsors and all these things that they want you to come to, but let's go to work, do our job, then we can enjoy. Because I don't want any distractions of, leading up to it. Cause it's distractions, people pulling your side away.
Yep, 100%. So, yeah, as soon as you get on the bus, it's like you click your heels and it's a business trip. Like everything has to be left behind. So, okay. Well, very good. And then, we did the Outland Trophy, right? So, So year 5, first Big Ten honor, first team. Again, we did the Outland Trophy, all that kind of stuff. And a 37-17 victory this time over Florida in the Outback Bowl, which was a big deal. Yeah. Anytime you go down there, I kind of learned to hate the Outback Bowl because we go every year and just get messed by some Southeast Conference team. But anyway, first back-to-back top 10 finishes for Iowa since the 1950s. Okay. Then, so 3-time first team All Big Ten, Outland Trophy, All-American, also academic All Big Ten honors for 3 consecutive seasons. And I think elementary ed.
Yep. Got a degree in elementary education. That was the thing going into college for me. I remember my dad at 12 or 13 years old told me to go work at the lumber company in our little town. Yeah. And no disrespect to those people that work there. Yeah. But he said, go see what it's like to stack logs, stack lumber, right? And go to college, get an education. Right. And, so it was very, very big in our family to go to college, get an education. Right. And that's, that time, that's what, I thought I wanted to do. And, that was my goal, to come out of there with a degree.
And you did. And did it well. So it's all good. And let's see, post-career, U of I Athletics Hall of Fame 2017, and you're added to the Iowa's American Needs Farmers Wall of Honor. in 2015, recognizing student athletes for their tenacity, work ethic, and exemplifying the character of American farmers, which you know well. So that's a pretty cool full circle there. Let's see. We talked on, you don't have to add anything else. I put down, as in those early years, what were some of the major obstacles, or like what were some of the challenges in that whole thing that you really had to face both as a team? And I'm really thinking too about your transition coming in, so tight end, moving to O-line, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things going on there. You're dealing with all your body issues, plus taking care of school, and then plus trying to put on a performance on the thing. So what were some of the things that kind of challenged you both personally and kind of on the team scale?
Yeah, I think, coming in, it was, I wanted to belong on that team. I wanted to earn a starting role at a young age, right? They didn't have stars back then, and the recruiting, I sent out in high school, VHS tapes,
right?
To schools, because, lucky for me, my brother Nick had, been through it,
yep.
And they knew about our family, but I sent tapes to places, right? And I wasn't this high. I was a good athlete, I was a good basketball player, still had the school record in the high jump. I ran 100-meter dash. So I was an all-around athlete. So when I got there, I was like, I just want to earn a spot. And, I was just too young and dumb to think like, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do this. The challenges along the way. I mean, the first day, and I'll never forget it, the freshmen came in. It was just freshmen. Coach Ferentz's first year, Chris Doyle's first year, right? So I'm a 230-pound soaking wet tight end, right? Yep. They're working me at tight end,
yep.
And I'm the only tight end in that group. And Chris Doyle's holding, the strength coach is holding the bag. And I remember I hit it the first rep to come off and drive in. My hand slid up off the bag, hit him in the face, right? And my shoulder popped out at the same time. So I'd had a shoulder injury in high school, thought it was healed. So my shoulder popped out of the socket, slid back in. So these two things happened, right? Chris Doyle staring at me, right? 1999 Chris Doyle, who was strongman lifter, big guy, right? And I'm dying because I'm sure as hell not going to tell anybody that my shoulder just came out, right? No. So it just, that was the start of it. That was the start of working through adversity. So I had this goal of, I am going to show them how tough I am. And so that was the start of it. And as the time went on, it's easy to say it now, but looking back on it, it just every day it was just work, get better. I remember Aaron Campman, great player, great Iowan. He was a huge fat offensive lineman, right? And in conditioning, I'm gonna beat him. I was just like, oh, you think we're fat and slow, right? So I'd line up right behind him, right, in the conditioning drills and the change of direction stuff, right, and beat him sometime, not beat him sometimes. But that was my motivation, right? And I never talked shit, right? I was still a young kid, but I'm like, oh, if you don't think I'm good enough, right? It was kind of that, some of that chip on the shoulder. Oh, you think I'm good enough? And it's just, teammates and talking trash. But those were the lessons for me that, I remember. And then as time went on, obviously playing tight end, right? I think I caught 2 passes my first 3 games. I knew I wasn't specific to one position. I'm just like, I'm going to do what's best for the team. It's easy for me to say now, but I was like, where can I play? Right. So I'm starting at tight end. They come to me 3 games into the season. Hey, what do you think about moving to left tackle, right tackle? I think I played right tackle that first year to finish out. What do you think about playing offensive line? I was like, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do.
Right.
And then so that transition, right? So I'm go from, I think my first game was versus Illinois and I believe it was right tackle. Fred Wakefield was a senior, All-American defensive end, right? And so you talk about mindset at that point, I'm just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, I didn't know what to think of it then, but I just remember, okay, I only gave up 1 sack. I'm doing okay, right? Because I was a young, scared kid going against an All-American.
And what are you weighing nowadays? That year?
At that point, I was 280 or 285.
Yeah.
So I'd started putting the pounds on. But I was just, I was scared. I was learning the position, learning how to get, and it was. So the mentality was like, I remember after the game, oh, okay, I did okay. I only gave up 1 sack, right? and how many quarterback hits, but I was trying to survive, right? And the coaches knew that. So as the time went on, obviously that changed, right? Then I got into an off season of working with Coach Ferentz and Joe Philbin, Reese Morgan, all the O-line coaches. Right. And I became more comfortable. Now, fast forward to my junior year, where, I'm 320, I'd been through 4 years of Chris Doyle, so now I'm a brick shit house.
Yep.
Can still run like I did at 230.
Yep.
And I'm learning the position from one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest offensive line coaches there is.
Right.
So my junior year, right, is things are just easy, right? Like I'm not worried. I'm like, no one's touching it, right? A bad game is a quarterback getting a grab of the jersey.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, I think back to it now, that led from having a great offense, right? We were pretty unstoppable. I had a bunch of dogs next to me. It's really easy to look good when everybody else is playing well and the team's playing well. But I just remember going through that year and it was fun. Like we were really good on offense. I don't remember the mess ups. I'm sure I had a bad play here or there, but I don't remember that. It was just, everything was just joy. Now get to after that year, after my junior year, all the fanfare, all the bowl game, and then scouts come to Coach Ferentz. He brings me in. He's like, "Hey, you could probably be a top 10 pick if you leave this year." And people call me on this, but I had no clue. I'd never thought of that stuff during this. And honest to God, during that junior year, I never thought about the NFL. Right. I not one time. I knew I was a good player.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was that good.
Right.
And I went to school going to get a degree. And so to me, it was like, well, what do you mean? Like, why would I leave? He's like, well, we're just giving you the information, right? They're saying you come out and probably be top 10.
We'd love for you to stay.
Right. Exactly. Right. So that for me was eye-opening, flattering, but there was never really any thought for me of leaving. I'm like, I came here to get a degree.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can be better. Right. And Coach Ferentz said that, like, hey, we can hope you can take yourself to the next level. Right. And so that was an easy decision for me. Came back. And then my senior year was when some of the, I wouldn't say the fun, I lost some of the fun, but that had creeped in, right? I was young, didn't know how to deal with it. Not that I didn't deal with the stardom, let's call it that. I don't know what it is, the people watching because of you're good.
Sure.
But I didn't know how to deal with it. I'd have a bad play, right? And it would ruin me, right? Now, I was good enough that in that game, I could continue the game, dominate the rest of the game, right? I was just talented enough to do that. You can't do that in the league. But in that moment, it was okay, but it would ruin it. One of the biggest games I had, we lost as a team, played at Michigan State. I had a play that, Coach Ferentz said made me tons and tons of money. There was interception. I chased a guy down from opposite hash who had a 20-yard head start on me, no lie. Chased a guy down, just a freak play. And Coach, later on told me that made you a lot of money, just showing your athleticism, your run, your tenacity. Right. But for me, that game went back to 10 plays before that. I had my arms wide, got bull rush, got a holding call, guy bull rushed me, got me. And so that ruined it, right? I remember going to the post-game press conference and they're talking about that play, that saving play, because we saved a touchdown. We still ended up losing. But anyway, that's all I want to talk about.
You're looping back there.
Oh, I'm looping back to that holding 100%. Call because hands wide, guy bullers got me, right? So my senior year, the point of it is my senior year, I put a lot of pressure on myself, which is good. But when you're young, you don't know how to deal with it. I put so much pressure on myself to be perfect every single play, right? Because we'd watch film and I have one bad play, and I look back at it now and I'm like, 69 out of 70 plays that game, I was a plus, right? And there's this one, right? So, but I also think what helped push myself to the next level. But it's when you're young, you don't know how to deal with that, right? Because I didn't know how to at the point.
Let's take a niche in there though. Did you have kind of a reset tool in the middle of a game? Like, so if you did have a bad play, did you have a process in which, you tried to flush it or do anything, whether breath work or visualization or anything like that, or an affirmation?
I didn't. The one thing I did have, and it was a guy that I want to coach, Scott Pioli, was the GM for New England at the time. Good friend of Coach Ferentz's. He was through our facility, and I remember something that, and I just saw Scott last week when I was back in Iowa for training camp. So great relationship with him. He's a great guy. But I remember him telling me, he was talking to me. It was after one of those games, and he was in the facility, and whatever, he had said something to me, and I brought up about not being able to get over this one bad play I have. And he told me, he jokingly, he's like, lighten up, Francis. Right. Just, right. And so in the game, right, I remember after that, I was like, oh, you're right. He's like, 69 out of 70 is pretty good. Like, just lighten up. So I remember in the game, that's all I knew back then. It was something would happen. I would be like, lighten up, Robert. Like, I was just, I hadn't been taught meditation, all these other visualization things. But I do remember saying that to myself. It's like, kind of laughed it off and like, lighten up, dude. You're doing pretty good. It's still
a children's game. Yeah. Being played by some pretty serious people, but we do kind of get out of that. I know one of the ultimate things, we had 3 things for George always was, work hard, get better, and have fun. And you do the first 2 primarily before you get to the game, and then just having fun, letting it all rip. Yeah. So, but it's hard though, especially like that senior year. They've talked to you about the draft. People are watching, all that kind of stuff. And then, there's money at stake and blah, blah, blah. And then the worst, I think, isn't the pressure too, though? Like you had that great year. You're supposed to be Mr., All-American, all that kind of shit. You're carrying that around in a backpack on your back. And then when you don't have the play you want to have, then it's like kind of embarrassing. Like, 2 years earlier, like maybe you gave up a little pressure. It was like, good. There's only 1 or 2 of them. Right.
And nobody cared, right? It wasn't on the TV, and it was not that, social media is not what it is now, but it was, you thought about it more, and it was like, it took a little bit of the fun out of it, but it was also, that's what, the standard we had set. I had set that standard for myself. For sure. But you also, looking back, I would have loved to know how to deal with myself better, with that standard I had set.
100%. And I mean, that's, so teaching that stuff earlier, like even grade school-y kind of stuff, teaching people how to breathe, regulate, neurology and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. Well, very cool. So we talked on a lot. I don't know, any core lessons out of the Iowa years, or was there 1 or 2 successes or like super high moments? Like I think folks would love to hear about that too, because you guys had a lot of unbelievable games and big games. And, before I just want to, like, I'm not going to go into this. Like my mind's going, I'm thinking about working with parents and like, when you do O-line at Iowa, and I'm not saying it's not, everybody's advanced and all that kind of shit, but it's like people have just no idea of the nuances, and all positions are that way too. I know, where their foot is and all that kind of shit and the hand placement, all that stuff. But like when you break down O-line and you start doing that, like, and I try to have a chat every occasionally with some people, and they casual, and they like all of a sudden they glaze over and they have no. So anyway, like, the weight in your feet, how your stance is, your eyes, where you're looking, we always talked about reading the triangle, with the SAM and the DE and all that stuff. And just all the different things you have to see, and the communication and the technique, like you said, arms wide versus not, I'm just thinking of the hours and hours we spend on punch drill and working on a pad and doing all that shit. So, so that transition from tight end that year, and then the 3 years later where you came to all that kind of finally after 10,000 million hours and reps kind of all kicks in. So anyway, just a testament to the way in which they develop and teach and do all that kind of stuff. Cause by the end, I mean, like nothing against anybody else. I didn't really pay attention to the Niners draft. The only one I paid attention to, 7th round, they got the offensive guard from Iowa. And the thing about it for me was he started 4 years. Yeah. Like you don't go to Iowa and start 4 years you know what I mean? Yeah. So guy's got to be a dude. He's got nice long arms. So I'm anticipating great things out of him. So
yeah. And there's so many things learned. Like you said, it was the details that Coach Ferentz taught. And like I said, I went back last week and hung out at training camp took Lincoln back, my son Lincoln, and cause I want him to be around that family, to be around Coach Ferentz. But I sat in on the O-line meeting room, right? And I see these young kids as me, right? It's like now that I'm an adult, cause they're, right. And I'm thinking stance. I'm thinking the 100 things I had to go through to get where I was, right? And there's this young freshman kid in there that just is like, what? His eyes wide, right? Like just trying to survive, right? And so I pulled some of them aside and he's like, hey, I get it. I was there. Yep. Right. But this is why Coach does this every single day. This is why he calls you on it every single day, because you want him to do that. Cause this minute detail is going to make your life so much easier. But there's 100 things, right? And it's so overwhelming till you get it. And then it makes it easy. Right. So those were the lessons for me. It was just not to take it personal, to, the critique. I wrote it down. That's something that carried into the NFL was every day they would say something, I'd write it down. I have, have notebooks for years and years of every single practice, every single play, hundreds of plays.
That's really important
per week. And it was because I could go back and look at it and be like, oh, I'm still stepping too wide. Stepping too wide, stepping too wide, stepping too wide. Right. I haven't fixed it yet. So that helped me. And just the way they taught, the way Coach Ferentz taught, Joe Philbin was there, Reese Moore, but the way Coach led, for me was, it had a huge impact on me, and the way he treated us, right? And the biggest accomplishment for me, obviously I won a lot of awards and all those things are awesome, right? That doesn't happen without a good team,
for sure.
But I think it was taking, a 1 and 10 to, 11 to, to
pretty amazing.
Building a program, right? And that's why Coach Ferentz is still there today, still a mentor and a friend, because he's this. I told the kids that last week there, like, you guys don't get this, but that man is the same, besides a few years on him and gray hair, as he was 20 years ago.
Right.
And that's why this program's successful. And that's why we continually put out great linemen, great time, right? Because the fundamentals are there.
Yeah, 100%. So it's a process.
Absolutely.
You can't bake bread without the yeast. You got to do it. Okay. So there's a lot of Iowa. Anything else in there that, so let's see, in this transition then, so we're going to start into the NFL stuff. So at this point, did you have any kind of daily practices, around mindset or mindfulness or breath work or anything like that? I'm just kind of tracking your evolution as far as that stuff.
Honestly, I didn't. I didn't. I got, once I got into the league, a little bit, my third year, there was some valleys. Yeah. It was just, another coaching change. We had obviously, with the Raiders had a lot of coaching change, but it was a down year for me for different reasons. And I remember it was the first time I was introduced to like a visualization coach. Right. Cause I was like,
and did Kirk ever do visualizations before the games?
We would sit, yes, we would sit and, this play, close your eyes. We're going to walk through this play.
Yeah.
I would do it. And as I look back, I would, before every game, before we got on the bus and when we stayed in Cedar Rapids, I'd be in the hallway before the meeting, visualize, I'd be walking, have my eyes closed. Okay. I didn't know it at the time, right? But that's what I was doing.
Before every game, after warmups, we'd come into the locker room with Hayden. He'd turn off all the lights. And he'd do a 10-minute guided visualization.
Oh, nice.
For every game. And so like if you're at Michigan, whatever, he would see the scoreboard, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. That's like the first time I'd kind of been reading about that. And like we did some visualization stuff, but that was the very first time in my life playing at Iowa under Hayden that it was like, oh shit.
And I'm sure Coach did some of that stuff. Yeah. That's the stuff that, I have friends that remember every little thing that happened. Right. That's not something that stuck in my head. Right. But it was, I know we did those things, now it's my visualization, that stuff's different. But at the, in the time I look back, I'm like, oh, I was doing that, just in my own way.
Yeah. Well, that's a process. Okay. All good. And then just kind of checking in, because our story here is going to eventually get us into kind of your mental health. So any symptoms or anything going on after college in between, did you recognize anything? Were you aware of anything at this point at all?
No, not, once I got in the league, right, it's, again, I come from a winning program. Obviously we started out 1 and 10, but from a winning program that consistently won for 3 to 4 years.
Had a lot of fun.
Get drafted, super high. Come to a team that's rebuilding, right? And then throughout my pro career, I had 5 head coaches. This is a reality. It's not an excuse. Yeah. We had 5 head coaches in 7 years when I was with Oakland, right? So, I was used to winning. I was used to all these things happening. And then, we're 2 and 12 or, 2 and 14, 4 and 12, right? So, it's
not
hard,
good.
Right?
Not good.
Right. So now the pressure comes on, right? That I put on myself. And then now you're in these big media centers, right?
Yeah.
The Bay Area and, all good stuff, all stuff part of the process. But, right, when you're not winning, right, you're that high of a draft pick and it's like, like anybody, right? You go into thing, paying you a lot of money, you're going to fix this, right? It's one guy of 53 guys.
Yep.
So the pressure, not only that I put on myself, but just a team pressure of winning, right? It took the fun. So it was not took the fun out of it. I loved what I did. I was very blessed to do it, but I came to win. I remember calling Coach Ferentz, and that first year was just, I was so high on life that, yes, we weren't, I think we were 4 and 12. But I was still joy, right? I'm like, I get to do this and I get paid for it. Right. There was that joy from that first year, right? The first year in the league. But I also remember calling Coach Ferentz and being like, man, it's so different because some of these guys, like the minute that game is over, it's on to the next thing, right? And I was pissed for days, right? Because I want, right? That's why we did it, to win. And as my career went on, it was, so I learned that, right? And I learned for myself. So then that took a toll on myself because now as the years go on, right? Losing seasons go on, right? Coaching changes go on, right? You're putting this, like we're learning a new offense every year. There's all these things that people don't think about, right? That see, you're like, oh, you go play on Sunday and it's great. Life is great. You make money. And so that's when I started, not cognitively, but I started noticing like a mental health part of it. Because I was angry, right? I was like, I just wanted to win, right? I get done with the games. I was angry. My wife would, we were still young and she had a few drinks with her girlfriends at the game and get in giggling in, and it wasn't funny to me, right? And as time went on, right, that, I look back at very unhealthy for me, but I was angry because I was there to win, and not that everybody else wasn't, but that's, you do a job to succeed. And when you come from a winning program, you expect that.
Yeah.
And so that wears on you. So as the years went on, right, losing season, below 500, below 500, below 500, right, it wears on you mentally, and it changes. Now I look back on it, it changes, who you are as a person too,
sure.
because you carry that stuff. So that's when I started to learn about mental health through those seasons.
Did you find yourself, as those years went on, because you can't stay in that anger state all the time, did you find yourself kind of like, I call it like emotionally kind of pulling your rudder out of the water a bit? You're still present, you're still trying to play your best, but like it's not the same emotionally, the way in which you're attached to trying to win. And so you kind of like you're still there for everybody, but like you can't, it's almost that the pain of being all the way in, it's almost like an abusive relationship. Right. Do you know what I mean? That way. And so at some point you have to kind of pull your heartstrings out just a bit in order to kind of protect yourself.
For sure. I think it more became numb.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I became numb to it. And call it, I think it's the same thing was happening, but it was, like you said, I figured out I couldn't be that deep and deeply involved all the time. It was gonna kill me. It was like, because like it's every day, 100%. Right? And that's all you think about. So you had to find those times to check out, right? I remember, the times of, we'd go super early before games and sit and drink coffee. That's how we got up. We have our O-line group. We all sit and hammer coffee for 2 hours, shooting the shit, right? So it was those times that, leading up to the game, right? Those things that you kind of emotionally detached and just let everybody else do their thing.
Yep.
And that was a core memory for me, was that O-line group that we had over in the corner, drinking our coffee, bullshitting, listening to country music, and just our little group in the side.
O-line's still O-line.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's still,
it was the detachment, a little bit of, hey, if I want to make this long term, this is part of this business, right? Good or bad, but if you want to do this long term, you got to learn how to adjust to things like that. Okay.
So then we kind of dovetailed there, but you were talking like year 3, year 4-ish, you start to have an awareness, kind of a realization of kind of the impact all this is having on a mental health piece. And maybe you just talked about that, but is there a little bit more to that? Or like what were you feeling or seeing, or what were some symptoms that started to show that you started to become aware of?
Yeah, I think it was just for me, and I thought it was just turning on the switch. It was the anger, right? Before it was like and for me, it was like getting into a game, you had to, I had to flip a switch. I was not a finesse guy, right? I had to work very hard with it. My steps and my hands, repeat that stuff thousands of times.
And I want to just say this. You said it before, but like the way in which the things that you could do at Iowa in the college ranks, and even when you're playing a good player, it was different because the league's just different. And I don't know that people, like, the windows are so small and the people you play are so freaking talented. Like, people have no idea how many great players are in the league. A lot of people don't get all the notoriety, but particularly at offensive tackle, because you're playing these freaks at defensive end. They're like 260 to 280. They run 4.4s. They're really twitchy, all that kind of shit. And so I just like the pressure of kind of all of that and how good people are. And so just, the difference in that part of the game too. So when you're talking about like, I had to get to a certain place to play at my best level, every player has to kind of figure that out. That's part of the mental game. And then getting to that point, because if not, like, if you don't show up on a Sunday, you will get shown out. The film never lies. And like, if you're not ready to go, like they are. And so anyway, I kind of want to contextualize that because we see it all the time and with people, and, George has had friends and all that kind of stuff. And it just like the degree to which you have to be at a certain level to play in the league every single Sunday at the best. I just don't think people appreciate how hard that is.
Absolutely not.
And what a grind it is.
The best guys we faced in college, right? Everybody on the field's like that.
Everybody.
Every single one of them.
Every single one.
At that position, right?
Yes.
So is the room for error, is the wide hands, the misstep. Like certain guys, you're done. Right. And that's the pressure of every single play.
You let that elbow flip out, it's like, Yeah.
So
right.
that was the biggest thing, right? And then.
Which adds to the pressure.
It does. And then you're 2-12, right? And like you said, you shut it down, you're going to get exposed, right? So we were 2-12 and I'm playing harder than I ever played because I'm like, like you said, the film never lies, right? And that's ego, that's pride in what you do. I never wanted to look bad. I don't care if we're 2-12 and we're down by 30. So it was like that added pressure of go harder, right? And so that over the years, the buildup of that, right? So now I'm noticing, it's more on the mental health side. It wasn't much cognitively yet. It was just I couldn't turn off the anger. I couldn't, I'd be, depression, right? I know what depression was back then, but it was just, these things where I could get out of it after a few hours, turn into days, weeks, right? So now I'm a father, I have kids.
Yep.
My wife's at home and I'm an angry and or depressed person long term, right? Because you come out of these things and then you win a game and you pop out of it, right? So that's the stuff I noticed. And I'm like, man, is this just part of being in this business for a long time? I've turned into an angry, grumpy dude. Okay.
Now, as you look back on it, because I've heard you kind of talk about the anger post-career, was that really just the emotional kind of stuff, being a professional at, in that context and all that stuff? Or do you think some of the kind of CTE-ish or brain things were starting to manifest?
Looking back on it, I think some of the brain stuff was starting to manifest.
Okay.
For sure. Because that is a big part of, those are signs of the CTE brain damage. In the moment, I just thought it was part of the job of being in, part of the job, what happens over time.
Yep.
But definitely, because I was, like I said, I was not a finesse guy, right? I'm cutting, I'm on the ground, I'm head bashing, right? If I can stop a guy with my head, I'm doing it, right? Stuff they're not supposed to do.
I know,
right? But that's what bent face mask, like that's what I did. And then as games went on, the years went on, now I'm getting, I'm cutting someone and hitting their knee, and then it's, the stars for a long time.
Right.
Or, a couple games I remember late in my career staggering off, like trying to get off the field, and this is the drunk walk.
Right.
Right. And they grab you. So those, in the moment, you don't think about, well, what's going on? It's like, oh, I got my bell rung. But it was looking back, it's like, oh, wow, that didn't take much. Right. And that lasted a long time.
Yeah. So, and back in the 2000s like that, it's still, nobody was really talking about it. Concussions were just always part of the game. People had them. That was the smelling salts thing. Wake up. Are you okay? How many are there? If you can identify 3 fingers rather than 4, then you're good to go. Yep. So all that kind of stuff. And nobody was really talking about, the league wasn't talking about it.
Not really till my year in Seattle. So
yeah,
my 8th year is when the discussion kind of started. That's, I believe, the first year that if they took your helmet, you were out. Because I remember in that game, got my bell rung a couple times. Was coming off a knee injury, but I got my bell rung bad. Had a concussion, right? I'm staggering off the field.
This is at Seattle?
This is at Seattle.
Okay.
Staggering off the field. They came over and the brain doctor, this is the first year of it, and he grabbed my helmet.
Protocol.
Yep. Grabbed my helmet, and I was death grip on that thing. I'm like, it's my knee. I'm fine. He's like, you're staggering. Like, did you get your bell rung? No, it's my knee, because I had a MCL a couple games earlier. Right. So I'm arguing with him, right? As I'm trying to get to the sideline, he's holding me up by holding my helmet. Right. So that was kind of the start of it. And I had a few choice words for him.
Yeah.
If I
nobody wants to be taken off the field.
Right. If I recall correctly, I said, I'm going to fucking kill you if you don't let go of my helmet. Pardon my language. Right.
Yep.
But that's where I was. I'm like,
did he let go?
He let go. But that's, and some of this is self-imposed, but it's like, that's the way,
there's a ethic, there's a culture built in, at least in that era, right? Of, being there for your team, finishing the game. I mean, everybody plays hurt. I mean, that's the other part of the game that people don't appreciate. Like by week 10, 12, 15, nobody's on the field that's not hurt. Everybody's playing in pain. And
as an offensive lineman, like like you said, there's a code to it, right? One game that, I had a torn abdomen muscle, right? And they came in after the game, couldn't lift my leg, right? And they're like, when did this happen? I'm like, first quarter.
Yeah.
Right. But it was like, I can, and I played terrible because I couldn't lift my leg at all, you know? But it's just part of that. And that's right. Is that smart now looking back on it? But I'd do it again. I'd be the same thing because I'm like, I'm not going out. I'm not going off this field unless they have to carry me off here.
Because you're with your guys.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do this.
Right.
And everybody's dealing with something. So anyway, okay. So let's see. Well, let me run through this. So, okay, we're kind of midway through your career. Things are starting to happen. You're kind of seeing it. I just want to throw in 2010 Ed Block Courage Award. Was that anything particular, or like how did that come about? So, and say a little bit about what I looked it up, and I think it's about kind of overcoming resiliency, that kind of stuff. And so I just was wondering, what was it about 2010?
Yeah. So going back to my college career, I was I broke my hand, but I never missed anything, never missed a play in college. Had some injuries, but never anything that kept me out. And then as the years went on in the league, a few years in, especially that year, I had some major injuries. I shattered my fibula. So I leg whipped a guy on a screen, and something happened talking to the doctor, right? This goes back to the mindset. The game before, I had something weird with my back and I missed like 5 plays because they took me upstairs to check me out. And I'm like, I'm fine. Went back in. So the next game, go out, cut somebody, missed. He's faster than I was. Leg whipped him, hit my leg, and I come off limping. And doctor's like, hey, we need to go get it x-rayed. And I love all the doctors I work with, but I'm like, well, if it's cracked, what happens? He goes, you're having surgery if you broke your fibula. I'm like, I'm fine. So go back in, because in my head, the game before I'd missed 5 plays, and that's not acceptable, right? I'm letting my guys down. Go back in. We're at Kansas City going on down to win the game, which we ended up winning it. Go out playing on a screen, and something exploded. Well, my fibula exploded, right? So it was cracked. So I had that year. Come back, so have surgery, put it back together, come back from that, and then And
you played the next year?
I played that year.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think I missed 6 or 8 weeks. Came back from that.
Piece of cake.
Yep.
Love it.
So back in 2 games in, and this is, we're year before, I'm playing guard, right? Having some success, like comfortable in a system for a couple years. Get back in there, play a couple games, go to Pittsburgh, run a reverse. I peel around, crack back on a guy, knock the shit out of him. Couldn't get up. My legs, I couldn't feel my legs. My legs weren't working. So I'm laying there in the field, and I couldn't physically get up. Doctor's coming out, and I'm like, what? I'm moving with my hands. I couldn't. And as I sat there for a couple minutes, I started get feeling back in them, was able to move them, but was drunk at the dance, getting off the field with the trainer. Go in the locker room. I'm like, I'm fine.
Right.
Put me back. They're like, you're not going back in. So that year, go home after that game, find out I had long story short, had a loose vertebrae, piece of cartilage was torn, and my vertebrae hit my spine on that crack block, and that's knocked all my function up. And then I had bone spurs that lodged into my spine.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had to have back fusion. So I missed that year. So that led to the Ed Block Courage Award. Like coming back, it was pretty big surgery. Spinal fusion, pulled bone spurs out of my spine. So dealt with those couple injuries, and was awarded that, like you said, it's for Ed Blocks for resiliency and, pretty much coming back from major injury. So was an honor, but not something you necessarily want.
Would wish you'd not have been in that situation. Right. Okay. Damn. Okay. There you go. All right. Well, so there's a whole bunch there. We're kind of partway through. Overall, you played 104 games is what it has between the Raiders and Seattle. And then I think after Seattle, you signed as a free agent with New England on a 1 or 2 year deal, and we're kind of getting prepped. And then kind of in August before camp, made a decision not to.
During camp, was there the off season. I had 3 surgeries, so the surgery started piling up.
Yeah.
I was 7, 8, 9, and 10 were after that year, that season. Well, 1 during the season, that year in Seattle that I came back from too early. And then 2 post season, after the season. I went to camp in New England, and just physically, mentally I wasn't there. Physically just couldn't move. I just wasn't who I was in the past. Went through a couple weeks of training camp, and was just like, I can't do this. I'm not at the standard I want to be. I had waited for that opportunity, but, the mental health side of it was even more. for me. And I decided a couple weeks into camp, went into coach and was like, hey, I'm going to hang it up. I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm done.
We're now about, we just kind of entered into the retirement kind of getting out kind of stage. And so I guess before we kind of jump all the way into that one, I do want to hit it because one of the things that we talk a lot about is, so we work with our veterans and it's all about the transitions, right? We talk about, them entering into the military, whatever, and then in there and all that kind of stuff. And so those different periods. So what were some of the biggest differences for you as you went college to NFL? Like what were some of those real big and I know we've talked about the mental game, not winning, all that kind of stuff, a lot of different coaches. So this context and the situation you were in were really tough. And we also kind of talked about, the caliber of play because everybody's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So were there other things though about that transition that made it that was really a challenge for you?
I don't know if it was a challenge. It was eye-opening that from college to the pros, like it's a business. Right. It is still a game, but it is a business, right? You can be making too much, too low, cuts, all those things about how a business is run, why decisions are made, that I think was very eye opening because in college, you're just, you're young and it's like you're getting paid, school's getting paid for. It's fun. There's a lot of pressure, but, the business side of it was very eye opening.
As long as you don't do anything really stupid, you're going to get your 5 years. You're going to get a degree. You're going to be okay.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you may not play like you wanted to, but like other than that, like unless you're a real dumbass, you can make it through.
Right.
And so, but yeah, NFL's different. There's a guy there in the locker next to you. Next day, committee's gone. Like it's all the time.
Yeah, it's cutthroat. And you can, like I said, certain guys let go because they're making too much money, right? Got a younger guy that's younger and making less money. The room for error, right? You see guys, right? If you're going to make those big mistakes, you better be a guy they can't let go, right? So you're like, wow, that guy did that and he's still on this team, so it's like, you grow up very quickly, like seeing the business side of things, from college to the pros.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And just the nature of team camaraderie and all that kind of thing. It's just a different function, especially year to year because the teams roll over so much.
For sure. And it's not, college is different now, but back then, right, your guys were on there, you're there for 4 or 5 years, right? There's not rollover, right? That's the new guys that come in, but some of our rosters, there were very few guys left held over from year to year, right? And you're turning over 50 some guys.
Right. And we don't have to go there, but like you said, with the NIL and the transfer rule now, like I watched the draft and like almost everybody they introduced, I bet 75% of them played at least 2 schools. Yep. And there's a bunch that played at 3. Mm-hmm. And so it just like whoa, because that was not even possible back in the day.
No, you didn't even think about that. It's it's sad for me because it's like I remember those 5 years of the grind we put in and the relationships you made. Now it's somewhat turned into a business for some of these kids, and that's their choice.
All the schools are hiring GMs to handle all the money and the NIL and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, we'll digress on that. So we talked about that. We talked about the transitions. What about one moment was there a great moment? Like either a big win or like what's a Robert Gallery feel good NFL career moment?
Yeah, no, I think, I go back to the time with the guys in the locker room, right? Those bonds you created. I said the winning was minimal, unfortunately, so those, you learn in the league, like, how much those wins mean, right? Even on a good team, right? It's hard to win in the NFL.
It's hard.
And it takes a lot, and it's the room for error, right? It's not in college, you have your terrible teams and the teams that they can't touch, right? The league, they're all, even the bad teams, it's all very close, right?
That's why 2/3 of the league are like 1 or 2 from 500.
Yep.
Like, and there's like maybe 1 or 2 teams way up and 1 or 2 teams way down, but everybody else is right in the middle.
Yeah, so I think you go back to some of the stuff, the moments you remember, for me, it's the O-line stuff. It's the games we got game balls, the wins that we got game balls because we had, running back had 300 yards and those times. And then, we had guys that would take care of us, right? They had good running backs, have a good game, come in and take us out to dinner, case of beer, whatever it was. Yep. That's the stuff I remember. And just the relationships you had with those different players and coaches and fighting through some of that adversity and throughout the time you're there. Yeah.
One of the great things about sports in general. So, okay. So let's see. I think we're getting there. We talked a little bit about your mindfulness, not any particular practices, but somewhere in there you heard a little bit about meditation, it sounds like. Anything in the as far as that is you're ending out. So and now toward the end, your body's kind of calling it quits, right? And then when did kind of your awareness then on the mental health stuff, when did all that kind of start to transition? So we're leaving. And I guess too, was some of it compounded? So like a lot of the veterans we talked to and or former NFL guys, your identity is so wrapped up because you go, junior high, high school, college, NFL for 8 years. And then all of a sudden the uniform's gone. Nobody gives a shit. The whole thing's over. Yeah. You're just Joe Citizen again. And so there is a little bit of trauma. I mean, but there is a process about leaving and trying to create a new identity and all that kind of stuff. So did that kind of compound? Was that an effect for you? And did that also hit in with kind of the other anger and other kind of things that were coming from the brain injury stuff? Yeah.
As you leave, right? You're like, that's all you know, right? So you get up and like, the identity part is like, who am I now? Right. I remember, having an argument with Becca. I was home a few weeks and, I wanted her to go do her thing because it was always about me during my career. So like, you go do your workout, go do the things you want to do. And I remember coming back and told her, I'm not a fucking stay-at-home dad, right? Because I'm like, right. And that sounds terrible because, I love my kids, want to be, but it's like your identity was go to work, do this, train, all these things. Right. So the transition definitely was tough with like everyone goes through it, no matter how prepared you think you are. I knew, right? We all want to play longer. We all want to, right? And you don't know, right? You have great year, then some injuries, like it can be over like that. Yep. Right. And once 100%. You decide, and I decided, myself, but that phone doesn't ring. It's not right. Not too many guys are getting talked to coming out of retirement. Right. So made that choice because it was what I needed to do at the time. Right. And then it's done. Right. Phone doesn't ring. Right. Like you were just normal guy. So yeah, I thought I was prepared for it. Right. You save your money, you do these things so you don't have to go get a construction job or a job, and no disrespect to a construction job, but that was one of my goals, right? Hey, be smart, save your money so I can choose to do what I want to do. Yep. And as prepared as I thought I wasn't, because now I'm like, who am I? Like, what is my value? Like, okay, I'm a dad, right? I'm a husband, so I'm going to put my effort into that, right? Right. But everyone needs their identity. And so I searched for that for years, afterwards. And so that's compounding with the brain stuff, right? So now I can't figure out why I'm foggy all the time, why I'm, there's ringing in my ears, and these cognitive things along with the emotional things, right? I'm super angry. I get triggered, right? Something would come on or football game would come on and I'd all of a sudden go from just fine to, we're with friends or watching a, barbecue and Sunday night football and something happens and all of a sudden go from just fine to triggered to super angry. Right. And it's not just and when we talk about this, it's not just, oh, I got upset. This is like rage to the highest degree. Right. So you're in a public place, you're with people and Becca started noticing it like, what's wrong, right? Because I go from just fine to just dark eyes. Like she's like, your eyes are dead, right? So as time went on, these things are happening. And I just thought it was like, I just can't handle being retired, or I'm blaming it on all these other things. I'm not thinking of the tens of thousands of head hits I took and the many concussions I had, right?
Let me ask you, tell me when you're like, because we were talking earlier and you've had a therapist or mental health person, for at least a while. When in that process, like, did you have like a therapist in NFL at all? Or when did your kind of practice, or are you, I mean, I don't want to overassume, but
I did a little bit, a couple years in the league that, like I said, a couple challenging years. I started working with someone and then kind of got away from it. Yeah. But then as I transitioned out, I'm like, okay, I need some help. Like I need to talk about this. So I had reached out to some of the NFL, stuff that we, have available to us. So that's when I first started. It's like, hey, I need to talk to somebody about this. Like I shouldn't be this angry. I shouldn't be, or maybe just help transitioning. Like, why am I having these thoughts? Why am I so, help me get over this, for better lack of words. So, as time went on after my retirement in 2012, right, I'm doing some of those things, right? But still not knowing what's going on and not dealing with things, right? So now I'm not working all week, right? We're before I would, as the years went on, right, to get over those things. And, we'd get done with the game and go drink a couple 12 packs of beer.
Yep.
That was the coping mechanism for the not being able to sleep and my head hurting and my body feeling like crap, right? That was not great, but that was our coping mechanism. As a
been going on for a long time, brother,
so now I'm home,
yep.
right? And now I'm coping 2-3 days a week, right? Over with the neighbors, over with the boys, right? And it's the things that I had done, my whole life was in excess, but it was always pointed towards training harder, right? Doing things for your craft, right? So now you're home and now you're, can't have 2 beers. We're going to sit around, we're going to have 20. Right. And so things kept compounding like that. Right. And then as some of the cognitive stuff is like, I wasn't able to sleep. So, I can sleep better if I drink a bunch, it'll put me to sleep. Right. And then, the pain, right. So it's like, I want to get off these pain because I was on a bunch of painkillers before I retired. I don't want to do this, right? I know it's bad for me. So alcohol's better, right? It'll make me
100%. Yeah.
So these things that, as time went on, it was getting worse and worse. And then, for me, when I knew I really realized there was something going on. It was like the trigger, right? I would go from just fine to my wife putting down the coffee cup on the table instead of the counter. Without me saying anything, just, here, I got a cup of coffee, put it there. And I would be so angry, right? In my head, it wasn't verbal, physical most of the time, but in my head, right? And it doesn't even make sense unless people have experienced it, that just this rage and anger towards her, like, why the fuck would you set it there? I'm sitting over, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. So then you have that in your head. And you don't want to say anything because I'm like, I'm crazy. Like, she did nothing wrong. So all these things are happening, right? My kids now we have 3 kids, right? And they're young and they're giggling and they're doing stuff that kids should do. And I would get so angry at the laughing, right? It would trigger me to this anger and I'd sit in a chair, right? Just rubbing my hands because in my head, I wanted to quiet them down. And then you're seeing these things. I'm a terrible person. And so these things are happening. This is when I'm like,
so you got a lot of voices going. So you have the energetic urge of the anger is up. And yet there's almost like these other voices, like there's the critical voice kind of chastising you for having the anger. And then there's an awareness voice kind of looking at everything going, man, something ain't right. Like there's almost, like I don't want to like oversimplify it, but it seems like there's a level of cognitive kind of insight at a lot of different levels from a lot of different perspectives for you.
Yeah. And there was, the good thing was there was some awareness, right? And I've talked to guys in this space as you have, that there's no awareness of what's going on. It's not their fault, but I had awareness because I'm like, these things are not right? This is not normal, right? This brain fog, So
you hadn't lost everything.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with that. And it just happened during that time, I was going through my workers' comp, versus the NFL, and my lawyer said, hey, we need to get a brain scan, because I was in these dark times very honest. Like, you go see these doctors. Well, do you drink? Yes. How much do you drink? How often? Well, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week. How many drinks do you have? 15 to 25? Right. And these guys are looking at you like, well, you asked, I'm being honest. If I'm drinking beer, it's probably 20.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm drinking tequila, maybe 10 doubles, it was, I was very honest with what was going on, because emotionally so much was going on in my head that, I was trapped with these thoughts. So going through that, get this brain scan. And then that's where kind of the awareness came for me. I get a brain scan, a SPECT scan, and the neurologist brings me in and is like, hey, all these things you're dealing with, right? You talk about.
What year are we? Just so I got a little.
So we're probably 2016 by now.
All right.
So it was 4 or 5 years into retirement.
So retired 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
4 years in. So during this time, just because things kept getting more and more intense and right with all the things we talked about. And it just, if that wouldn't have happened, I don't know if I would honestly ever been aware of it. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't, right? It sounds so, it doesn't, like, you don't know, like, how did you not notice it? Well, I knew something was going on, but I thought part of it was just the lack of identity. Like, I just couldn't handle being done, right? I wanted to go to the pros and accomplish these things,
you're angry about certain things and you're projecting it into your life in a different way that's not particularly healthy.
Exactly.
Okay. So you're holding on to all that. So you're kind of thinking, I just need to go unpack some of this shit and kind of do some healing or whatever and kind of get it fixed.
Yeah. Not really thinking about the brain stuff because still, to me, right, a concussion was you get knocked out and taken off the field.
Right.
Right. So that still at that time in 2016, I'm like, well, did you ever have any concussions? No, because concussion definition in my brain is you're knocked out, they wake you up, and they drag you off the field. Right. Not thinking of the thousands of times I got my bell rung, seeing stars, staggering, all those things. So when I do the brain scan, they bring me in and he's like, hey, all these symptoms you're having, right? This anger, this is where this part of the brain deals with that. This is where all this stuff is affected, right? Put up a healthy brain, a healthy 30-some-year-old brain.
Saw those pictures. We'll link that stuff up. So
right. And then put mine up there and it's like, oh my God.
There's a few gaps.
Looks like someone used it as a punching bag, right? And, I've said this before. So Becca was with me with this. She's crying, right? And I'm laughing, right? And she got very irritated with me. Why in the F are you laughing? And I said, exact words I said, because now I know I'm not crazy. Right. Right. Because there's a reason.
A physiological reason.
Absolutely.
That's behind some of the things that are going on.
Yep.
And even though the answer sucks, it's better to have some knowledge and some answer than to not know.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally get it.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, that started my true healing journey, right? Because I'm an all or nothing person, and I asked
clearly.
Yeah.
We got that message. Right. Right, dog.
Healthy or not, right?
Like, we're coming, baby.
We're not getting one tattoo, we're doing the whole body, right? So, I asked the neurologist, hey, is this, you've seen a lot of brains. Is this bad? Is this moderate, light? He goes, I've seen worse, not too many. He's like, this is pretty severe.
So you're in that 7, 8, 9 scale on a 10.
And he said, the reality is I can't tell you have CTE until we postmortem when we take your brain out. And he's like, you have CTE. Like all your symptoms, the amount of damage you have, that's because I was irritated, like, because that's the way I lived at that time. And I said, don't give me the BS doctor
bullshit
stuff. Tell me the fucking truth. What's going on here? I don't care if it's bad, whatever it is, just be honest with me. And he was like, if you do nothing, unfortunately, you're probably going to be a statistic. That's where this is leading. If you don't quit drinking, if you don't get healing emotionally and physically, because I was very honest about the dark stuff, right? Yeah. The suicidal nightmares, the driving down the road and thinking, hey, if I drift over in front of this semi, then nobody will think I'm a coward and I killed myself, right? And the stuff you're not thinking correctly, and I didn't know in the moment what is causing this, right? I put it all back to post-career stuff that I just thought, I just can't handle this. So that began my healing journey. And for 2 years from that point on, I did everything I could to help heal, right? So I started seeing a therapist again. I started to, I dabbled in meditation. I was doing hyperbaric chamber. I'm doing IVs. I'm doing everything they tell me to do, working with a brain specialist, working with a therapist, trying to quit drinking, but I was still my coping mechanism. I was still how I function to go out in public. I was fun. And, my wife would say it was like, she's like, I didn't like when you drank, but I did because you weren't trapped. Like, you could go somewhere and function, be social, right? I was never that guy as much.
It kind of put the fires out that made you difficult to be around.
Right.
And so then you could kind of be that normal social Robert that she loved.
Knew in college.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So
a happy guy.
Yeah. So during that time, and I spent about 2 years, with all that stuff, hyperbaric chamber. I bought a hyperbaric chamber, great. The league has a good retirement stuff for us for the medical. I bought one because they said you need to be in this every single day for the rest of your life. That's the amount of damage you have. And we see how it helps guys do this. So I'm doing everything. And I'm still struggling. I'm working with a therapist, right? And I worked through that, right? What's healthy? What's not, right? I went through a few of those guys because it was like, hey, it's not healthy to do this. Cause I got talking about, if I sit down and have a beer, I'll have 30, right? Because that's what you do. You drink as fast as you can, and that's how I feel better, and my body doesn't hurt, my brain doesn't hurt. But if I go for a workout, I'm going to go till see if I can get my heart to explode. Right. And he's like, well, that's not healthy. I'm like, well, would you rather me drinking beers or on the bike pushing it beyond the limits? Right. So there was no, for me, it was like, I can't work with this guy. He doesn't get my mindset. Right. Like how we think. Right. So working through that, finding a good therapist, and over those 2 years, I had some improvement. But it had gotten so dark during that time with the mental health stuff that I was, the suicidal thoughts were daily. Yep. Then I would beat myself up because I had these thoughts about the kids laughing and what I wanted to do. So then I'd think I'm a terrible human being. Yep. And they're better off without me. Right. I can't, and thank God
kind of feeds into the loop.
Yeah. And thank God I never physically touched them. Yeah. I was never, hand to God, I never physically abused them. Right. But the emotional abuse they took from, and not me not knowing, but my losing my trigger, right, and just the way I was, and then now I feel like a terrible human being because I just treated my family like that. Right. So I'm working through all this, right, and I'm seeing some improvements with the brain stuff, but it wasn't till and during this period, I started listening to a lot of podcasts, mainly military podcasts. 'Cause I'm like, my dad was a Marine, right? And I knew some different military guys. I'm like, that's what I should have done instead of playing football, right? It's that mentality. So I'm listening to these stories and I'm like, these guys get it, right? So I gravitated towards the Team Never Quit podcast, which is Marcus Luttrell's. Yep. And I think there was 250 of them at that time in 2016. And I listened to every single one of them because it just gave me hope. Listening to these guys that had been through struggles and a lot of the same stuff, TBI, anger, depression, suicide, all these things. And it's usually how they worked through it or what they did. And, many episodes in, I hear this guy talking. His name was Marcus Capone. He played college football. His wife's dad is a lifer college football coach. And then he was a 13-year Navy SEAL. So he's talking and I was driving. This is before we were living in Tahoe full time. And I'm driving up here by myself because I needed to check out and give my family a break from me. So I'm driving up here by myself. Called Becca and I said, you need to listen to this. This is me talking, right? Talking about the rage and the anger and the depression and the alcohol abuse and everything, right? I literally thought I was on some of the mental health stuff. I thought I was on the radio talking. So I listened to it, get up here early in the morning, look up their website. So Marcus Capone talked about his journey, all these things, and how he found healing. And that was through an old Navy SEAL friend of his, took him to Mexico, and he did psychedelic assisted therapy with this medicine called Ibogaine. So I'm like, listen to it. So it gave me hope. And I was like, I need to find out. So I emailed their website thinking, no way in hell they're ever going to get back to me. Next day I get a call and it's Marcus Capone and his wife. And it's like, hey, got your message. So anyway, we're talking. And I'm going through the stuff that I've done, things that are going on. Said, hey, it resonated with me. I don't know anything about this. I'd never heard of psychedelics, let alone tried them. Right. But what is this? And as the conversation went on, he's like, well, you can do all these things, right? There's hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I'm like, hold my beer. Like, I've done all these. Like, all those things you talk about, I've done. So talked with him and his wife for a week because they started this foundation, Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions. And so they were sending special ops guys, military veterans to Mexico to do this treatment. So I'm gathering information. I'm talking to my brain specialist about it. Obviously it's not something they can do, but she's like, I've heard of it. And then, long story short, Marcus offered me, he said, hey, I got a group of 4 close veteran friends of mine that we're taking down. We have an empty spot. I think you would fit in very well with this group. If you're interested and think it would help you, you're welcome to come along. And so, in my mind, I'm like, I instantly didn't talk to Becca, didn't talk to anybody. I'm like, I'm going. I said, I'll do it. What do I have to do? So started that process, right? I had to talk to their doctors because Ibogaine can you have to be off all your medications because it is, it's hard on your heart. I shouldn't say hard. It can react with other medicines. So I was on an antidepressant. I was on all these other medications that I thought were kind of helping me. Yeah. I had to get off of them because it can react with Ibogaine. Yeah. And there's cardiac issues. So I call my therapist and they're like, you can't get off these antidepressants because the treatment was 3 weeks from that day. She's like, you cannot get off this. I was like, I got to be off in a week. I got to be 2 weeks clear before I can go. She's like, you cannot get off this. And I said, is it going to kill me? She's like, no, but you're gonna lose your mind. There's reactions to getting off these things. So that was my initial thing too. Like, so you have me on something that if I go to get off it, it's going to greatly affect me. Right. So you're never intended to ever get off. Exactly. Right. And that's a whole nother story. That's another conversation. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, and I said, is it going to kill me? No, it's not. Well, talk to you later. Went cold turkey. Yeah. So I went, got off everything because I'm going to this treatment. Yep. Right. There was hope. So get off it. Luckily I had a support system around me. Right. I'm showing up at my buddies here, iron workers. I show up at their shop. Didn't know how I got there. Raging. I felt the effects of getting off these medications and luckily had the support to take care of me, check on me. Not a fun couple weeks for my family. The support team, it's almost like being like on a hockey arena where the wooden planks, except they're all padded. And like, you're not quite sure where you're going, you kind of bump. No. That's what good friends in a support system are. Like, you can show up and it's not quite right. Yeah. And they're like, all right, Robert, just take it easy. Let's get you back home or do whatever. And it's just an amazing thing to have people in your corner like that. It is. And for me, we'll go into that more later. The thing that helped me was like, Becca, played basketball at Iowa. She was an athlete, so she knew the athlete mentality. And she also knew that wasn't me, right? She didn't meet me when this was going on. She knew me when I was 19 years old or 20 years old, right? So she was, knew this wasn't me at my core, and stuck around and helped, right? Like, hey, it's okay. We can do this. Yeah. So get through that, go down to Mexico, show up with these veterans, and it's kind of full circle, all the things now that I believe in with energy and the universe putting you where you're supposed to be. Get there, and there's the 4 other veterans that are in this cohort, which I didn't know. I had to sign an NDA because there's some well-known guys, which I don't care. Like, sure, whatever, right? Get there, and I look over, and I'm like, it's Marcus Luttrell. So Marcus is sitting there. So this is like, listen to all his podcasts. And I actually said to him at that breakfast pre-treatment, said, I don't know if you like your podcast or not. Like, we were all kind of out of our minds, but I don't know if you like your podcast or not, but it saved my life multiple times. Thank you. And, it's just, that was my interaction with him. Yep. Okay. So we go to Mexico. I go through this treatment they have set up. It's Ibogaine and then 5-MeO DMT. And I had learned, right, I had coaching before I went short, because it was 3 weeks from when I knew about this. They have this foundation set up. It was a very well-run thing. There's doctors there. There's, because of the heart indicators, there's, we have to get blood tested and pee tested, make sure we're not on anything, right? Because it can react negatively with your heart. Go through all this, took the coaching, right? They're telling me this stuff that's going to happen, the spiritual stuff that could happen, trying to teach you what's going on. I'm like, yeah, right. In my mind, I'm like, there's no way, right? Marcus Capone hooked me up with 4 or 5 other veterans who had been through it. And I heard their story, and I'm like, there's no way, right? Oh, my cognitive improvement, this improved. But I had to believe, right? Because for me, it was my last ditch effort to heal. Right. The day I left we had moved here full time, to Tahoe full time. And we were working out in the morning the day before I went, and got done, and I'm on the front steps of our house, bawling my eyes out. And Beck was like, what is wrong? And she's like, are you scared to go? And I'm like, I said, no, I'm not scared. I'm scared it's not going to work. Right. Because that's just where I was. And I'm not trying to dramatize it or, right. But by then you're 3 years in, right? Right. I mean, it's like you're in the dark. It's the reality of it, right? Multiple times thought, like, how does this go away, right? And I tell people, like a friend of mine, veteran who ended up taking his life, said, no one wants to commit suicide. They want the noise to go away, right? And I wanted the noise to go away, right? It was constant. but it was constantly that thought, I'm a burden on my family. How do I make this go away? There's one thing that makes this go away. So get down there, go through the process. So I believe, right? I'm like, I gotta believe this is going to work. Go through the ibogaine, right? And at this point, ibogaine, nobody knows anything about ibogaine, right? So it's a psychedelic. There's people know about mushroom, psilocybin.
I have
mushroom.
definitions if you want to read it. Right?
Yeah.
I threw that long one in there. It's like crazy.
It is. Yeah. Right? So you got psilocybin, you got ayahuasca, there's things in it, but like, what is ibogaine? It is the highest powered, and that's what they told me. It's the highest powered psychedelic there is in that realm.
Yeah.
So go through the treatment, right? It's brutal, right? And I've never done psychedelics, let alone barely smoked marijuana in my life, right? So now I'm seeing things, and so I come out of it, not knowing what to expect, come out of it, and I'm this day after ibogaine, you have a great day. So it's rest. It's
so protocol 4, you get clean 2 weeks, then you do that, and it's a 16 to 20 hour.
Probably 10 to 12 hours. Yep. True.
Okay. And then it's built in that day 2, you guys call it a gray day.
Yep.
So everything's kind of cloudy, and your darkness may not have totally lifted. You've gotten some insights, but things are kind of murky and there's not a lot of clarity about what you experienced.
Exactly. And you're just physically, because it is
wiped out.
You're physically wiped out, physically and mentally, depending on your trip.
And then day 3 is the DMT.
5-MeO DMT.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's and that's the different, you're going to talk about that. So, okay. So that's kind of the protocol. So gray day. So you're in recovery.
I'm in recovery, and I'm, in the moment, I'm sick. Like a lot of times with psychedelics, you purge. I didn't purge during the 10-hour, 12-hour trip, but when I woke up, I threw up that gray day, was throwing up all day. Physically couldn't get out of bed. I tried to get up and walk. I couldn't get my legs to work. So I'm in a walker going to, right. I felt so terrible. And like, what did I just do? I literally woke up that morning and felt so bad. And I'm like, what did I do? It didn't work. Cause I didn't recall instantly, right? One of the veterans next to me was telling me about all these stuff he saw.
Right.
And I'm like, I felt so bad. I didn't remember anything. Right. And I'm like, it didn't work. And I fucked this up too.
You're a failure again.
Yep. And that's what I literally said that when I woke up. So
how can you fuck up a drug trip?
Right. So that's the learning part of it. So you go through that, went through the gray day, just felt terrible. Finally was able to eat something that night before I went to bed, but just was like nothing. Felt so sick that I couldn't thinking about what happened the night before.
Right.
Next morning, get up, feel a little better. Right. This is leading up to 5-MeO DMT. Start having some recollections like, oh shit. Like now I remember, I feel not deathly sick, that now I'm like, wait, I sat there and saw this, these reels of my life going by. I'm up in the floating in the sky. I see the stars and all these reels of my life and experiences are going by. Right. And then I'm grabbing some stuff and throwing it in my heart. I want to keep that. And then there's other things I'm throwing out, and then whoosh, that film goes out there. So to me, it was just hours of that. And everybody has their own experience, and I don't want to put an experience in someone's head, but it was, they had talked about defragging your brain before you went in. There's a defragging process this medicine does, right? And it gives you what you need, right? Guys, I had a great childhood. I had great parents. I had a great family. There was no trauma, that I found. A lot of, veteran friends of mine thinks it's war is their trauma, and they get into this experience and they find out, oh no, it's not that. It was childhood trauma.
Honestly, military enrollees, it's somewhere between 35 and 40% already have PTSD before they go in, or related symptoms from prior either family or their kind of life situation. So there's a lot of it. It's almost like that is a foundation platform for entry into the military.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now I'm recollecting things, right? And then we go into the 5-MeO DMT, which is another psychedelic, high-powered psychedelic. You smoke it. It's a toad poison. So ibogaine is an African tree root. We can go into the definition of what a scientist would say, but it's an African tree root. And 5-MeO is toad poison. Yeah, right.
So we got the toad on the tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So in that experience is, it's, they call it the God molecule. They said these things would happen. You may, a lot of people die, either ego death or have the sensation of dying, what dying really will be like, all these different things. Right. So I have my own experience, but it was a magical experience, and we can go into that now or later, but it was for me, it was, I died. I went to the white light. I'm a Catholic. I believe in God. These things that I believe in, but it was a whole different level. And for me, I went to the white light, and then I'm talking to God, my God, and.
Did you get a visual?
I did.
What do we got?
Well, it was just I think it was what we were taught in Bible school, and right. It was the white long hair, right? It's that stuff you read in the books, right? That we had in Bible school. And I'm screaming at him, telling him I'm a failure, send me to hell, I'm a terrible person. So this is my experience, right? Different for everybody. Tell him, send me to hell. And he's like, you need to talk to her. And then Becca appeared, my wife appeared behind him. I'm doing the same to her. And then all of a sudden there's this uplifting of, I figured out it was like my ego. My ego left something. I just felt something leave my body. And all of a sudden I accepted myself. That was the feeling in the moment.
So I want you to roll on here. I just want to say one kind of a concept that's been lingering for me ever since your transition out of the league. It's this identity, the sense of identity and sense of self without, this, all the facades that we create. So not that playing football was a facade, but I mean, it's a structure and a front, and we attach ourselves to it so fully, and like relearning to find value within yourself, even if my production isn't all those things, right. Which is really difficult. Yeah. And it almost seems like that thread has kind of trailed you all the way through. And now here you are in the midst of this second journey in front of God and the goddess, your wife, right? And suddenly, it's almost like it's pulled out of you to release all these expectations, all the burdens you've been carrying, all the kind of shit that the world has told you had to be, or you've told yourself, or all the underlying rules that we bought into. And kind of all of a sudden, all that shit leaves. And now here you are kind of in the naked, unprotected Robert Gallery self. And it's like, people still love me, even though I'm just right here.
Yeah. And it's
a pretty profound experience.
Yeah, well, it's life changing. Yeah. I mean, the combination of the two, for me, but that I came out of that and like, first of all, so like, I'm not scared of dying. Like that, the initial, for me, the white light, the learning that, but then that release, and I felt it instantly. I woke up. I mean, before I did this, from when my retirement through the day I went to Mexico, I wanted nothing to do with football. I wouldn't watch it. I would get triggered if my son would turn it on. Yep. I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't talk to people about it. It was just a trigger for me. And the couple days before I went down there, the new alumni director for the Raiders called to introduce herself, and I went off on her. Said, "You're just checking your box. You don't need to check the box with me. Nobody cares, right? Just mark that I'm fine, right? And you're doing this because you got a new job and you got to check in." Click.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so
you're building friends everywhere. I love it.
Great with her. Well, she's one of my closest friends now. Because when I got back, right, all this is lifted, right? I'm proud of what I did, who I am, this person of, the real person I am. And I come back and I go and speak at the Raiders. So that's another whole story, but it was like this whole burden was lifted. All this hate was lifted. And I loved myself, and was like, I should be proud of what I did and these things. And the real person was back. So come out of that, and literally I came back out. So I'm so sick the day before, come out of that experience, and I'm like, full life. I hop up, I walk back into the kitchen, right? These other, right? Cause everybody's like, we're all first timers.
Yeah, right.
And they're like looking at me, and I'm like, I'm back, bitches. Right?
Come on, right? Life, let's go.
And it was.
Give me a saddle.
And Marcus Luttrell says that, he never forget. He's like, you walked in and I could see your eyes were bright white, like you had life in your face. And it was everything from that point on. I mean, I felt it instantly, like they say it shuts down your brain and reboots it. Yeah. I mean, that Ibogaine shut it down, defragged it. And in that, I mean, I was like thinking clear, the brain fog, the ringing, all this stuff that I had for so long, and everything was very intense because I could hear everything, right? It wasn't that fogginess and the ringing. I could hear every little thing. I could hear the trees going. I could hear the birds. And it was just a profound experience. So it's,
That's cool.
Yeah. And you learn, through that, you learn, like I learned, I don't know, I learned to, I love myself again. I'm like proud to be who I was, like all these things that I had lost.
I know, because before just to thread it in, like we were talking about kind of the notions of failure. whether it is. And it almost felt like there were pieces like, you know, the career didn't go the way you wanted to because you wanted to win games and be successful and do all those kind of things. Didn't get to play as long as you wanted to and all that kind of stuff. And then coming out, the loss of identity and all those kind of things. And so that notion of it, and it's almost like this kind of relieves you from that whole, it's like an understanding, like all the pieces fit together in a way that's pretty magical. And somehow it's just our job to kind of make sense of it all.
For sure. And you said that standard we set for ourselves, right? And this is what I've learned. Like, you know, I've had great therapists and great friends. Like, if you would have played 10 years, you'd be pissed because you thought you should have played 12. Like, isn't it? And that's everyone. That's everyone. That's great. That's how we're successful. But you learn to let go of these things. Like, what is failure, right? Like, what is the real definition of failure? Like, so you're saying this was a failure. So what defines that, or what defines a success? You know, so that's stuff I didn't understand. Yeah. Right. And you come out of it and you're like, you have a different view, you know, things are rewired. And that's part of what the medicine does, is rewire new neural pathways, like the scientific part of it. Yeah. Right. So you think of things differently because we had this built into our head of what we were supposed to be, how we're supposed to act, what success is. Yep. Right. And that's great. That's how we become successful. But when you don't deal with that through that process and then it's done, then you don't know. Right. That's all you know. And it's like, well, failure is defined as this. Yep. Right. And so that's what it is. And then now, because of that, I see that as a failure. I'm a failure as being a father. I'm a failure, you know, all these things. So it was just very profound for me, not only cognitively, but to let.
I just feel all the energy kind of leaving.
Oh, let all stuff. I mean, I walked on my tippy toes for months because I felt so light, right? I was just, and we get back, you know, to finish the circle, we get back from Mexico because it was a down and dirty, right? You're Navy SEALs. That's 3 days in, you're out. Right. Okay. Right. Process has changed now with these facilities, but get back to San Diego. Becca was coming because they said, you may want to come guide him home. Right. Little reintegration here. Yeah. And she said that she walked into the restaurant where we all were and she's like, I knew instantly something was different. Like, she's got, you had life in your eyes. You guys were smiling. She's like, all of you. Like, she had never met Marcus and the other guys in my crew. But she's like, I could see it in every one of you, and especially you. She's like, the lights were back on. Like, she's like, your eyes were dead for the previous few years. Like, just, there was no life in them. And, you know, that was profound for me, and I'll never forget it. She's like, I didn't know if this was going to work or anything about it, but I knew something was different. And then we learned from there on forward, you know, how very different things were. Okay. And that's a whole nother story that you guys are getting ready to tell, right? Yeah. Her story and her journey with you. And really, like, I just want to shout out to her, like, for just being a badass. I mean, hanging with you in your rage moments can't be easy. You know what I mean? I mean, you're still a physical thing. Right. And so I just, you know, her credit and being around the kids too and all that, you know, that's got to be really tough. So, okay. So we got through all the treatment and all that kind of stuff. Let's, without any scientific definition of the ibogaine. So you get back super motivated. All these things are going good. So take us again. This is a new transition for you. A great one though, because everything's up. There's energy, there's life, there's new beliefs and possibilities. And you decide to found a new nonprofit. So now, and again, I'm not trying to short any of the story, but I do want to make sure that we get a chance to talk about Athletes for Care and all that. So I've got all of your stuff up. I'll just read the mission and then I'll let you kind of take it where you want to go. So, Athletes for Care. We are athletes, family members, friends, and fans advocating for a future where mental health is prioritized, psychedelic-assisted therapies, PAT, are accessible, and no athlete struggles alone. And the CARE stands for community, advocacy, research, and education. Then there's some stuff on the problem and the solution and all that kind of stuff. And so I'd kind of like just to let you kind of unpack all that for us. And like, so you come back and like you've always been like out there doing things for people and all that, but to start your own 501c3, co-found it, and then trying to get that off the ground and do all that. So something really clicked for you about making sure that this message gets out. So what happened and what was that transition and how's that been? Yeah. So that first treatment was in 2021. I had ups and downs from 2021 to present. Right. But I've gone through other, you know, I went through ibogaine again in 2023. But after that, everything started clicking, right? None of the dark stuff came back. Like cognitively, I'm feeling great. And I'm like, people need to know about this, right? And I'm like, I see myself, I see all these veterans that are drastically changed people, right? And we struggled, right? When I came back, all of a sudden I am a different person, and Becca's waiting for the shoe to drop, right? And things to go back to the way it was. So we struggled for quite a while until she realized, oh wow, he is different.
She couldn't quite put her weight down. Like
No.
It's like skiing on the ice when it's not quite, you
Yep.
know, like, you're
Yeah.
like, is it going to hold me?
Yeah. And I'm just like, it's okay, babe. Like I go from this,
Yeah.
so she's putting out fires all the times to like, everything's great, And so we get through that transition. I do some,
And I just want to say too, as a couple, the stuff you're describing, and that's a whole nother story. It's her story, but then your story as a couple, that's pretty powerful. I mean, the things that you guys must have been through and negotiating, trying to stay with each other and walk that journey and that path together, that's super difficult.
It is. And the thing that she told me one time is that she said, I was never mad at you. I was sad for you.
Yeah.
She's like, I knew this wasn't your fault. Right. I was, a lot of the things that some of the veteran groups we have, there is, not all veterans, but a lot of them, there's a lot of infidelity. There's things that those communities deal with that they've talked about. There was none of that. It was just all these things she's living with. And she's like, I was never mad at you ever. Right. I'm still not, I was sad. So yes, going through that as a couple just shows like, I'm the right person, took the right person. God put the right person.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. So, so we, we're learning, I get home, I'm reintegrating, right? That's a big part of vets. Like that's the thing, they do it right? So they're the ones that really got me into all the mindfulness stuff. Like you learn how to meditate, right? Do some microdosing, do all these different mindful practices. So that's when I created my practices, and cause I'm all or nothing, right? So I'm taking classes how to meditate, right? I'm doing all these things cause I'm like, I don't want this to go away, right? If that's part of it, I'm doing it. So over the years since that first one, I'm learning these things, and then I get to about a year ago and I'm like, I'm slowly telling my story, right? Cause I'm a different person. I'm reaching out to old friends, old teammates that hadn't heard from me for 6, 8, 10 years. Right. And they're like seeing the difference. And I'm like, people need to know about this. Right. And so that's where I'm like, how can I help? Right. And now it's a new identity, right? It's like, man, if I could help somebody, like the whole football thing, I let go of it, right? Like, this is an avenue to get me, right? To teach me that my true self is
right here.
Right. And helping people heal. And so I'm like, I'm ready to tell my story. Yeah. Right. Because it was profound, and it was, we decided to start, this opportunity came to start a foundation. And so we did all that. We're learning that whole process. Yep. But my goal is to, short term to storytell. So guys know I've had, since we started it just a few months ago, multiple ex-teammates reach out that have seen my story I went on Marcus Luttrell's podcast. Marcus and I became very close since our first treatment. Is one of my closest friends. I can call and talk to him about anything. Something comes up. Went on his podcast. I was on our so some good media stuff that I'm like, okay, I can help guys by telling my story, because I reached out to my friends and told them, and they're like, oh, I thought this is the way it was. I thought this is what I had to deal with. Right. And I relate to this. I relate to the anger, right? That comes up a lot. I relate to the rage, so my goal is like, how can I do this? So we started this foundation, and now the big part of it is, the storytelling because I don't think people know about it, right? The veteran community, especially with Ibogaine, they have come together. There's a lot of veterans who have gone through Ibogaine, psychedelic assisted therapy with Ibogaine. And athletes are starting to learn about it. But I want to, cause there is now a scientific side to it, right? So vets did
research around it,
did a study, did research, like creates neural pathways, creates new white brain matter. Like it's actually helping fix brain damage on top of all the emotional stuff. So to me, it's like, hey, if I can tell my story, and I'm supposed to be this big bad, right, athlete and all this ego stuff that we created for ourselves. Like the true help is the healing part of it.
We do, but we buy into a message that was fed to us.
Right.
So, I mean, let's not let the entire system off the hook either. But anyway, so that's another conversation, because it feeds into that whole thing, and that's who they tell us we have to be, who we want you to be. And if you're not, then you're subpar and all that kind of bullshit. So, but anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you guys started Athletes for Care.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're our goal is to, I think the problem in our community is the TBI. That's what brings on a lot of this emotional stuff. It's the effects to our brains in all sports, not just football. It's all sports. Yep. So we want to raise awareness to that, get people to, before they get to where I was, right? Guys that are just, it's anger, it's depression, then anger, and then the cognitive stuff. So, our goal is to help. We're working with some different researchers, as part of this big research that's going on. So, partnered with, the Texas Ibogaine Initiative. They, reached out to me. They, led by, Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard. They went after, some money in Texas. We actually, here a couple months ago, got a bill signed in, got $50 million to study Ibogaine. From that success, they created the American Ibogaine Initiative, which I'm a part of. Just the storytelling and another testament, right? Because it's not just veterans, it's athletes, it's normal people. So working with them, and there's multiple other states that are going to try and get money to research it. Yeah. And so Athletes for Care, we're just, collabing with those groups. And then we're also, we need to raise money, because I want to be able to, if someone reaches out and can't afford, like Vets is doing, help fund, these treatments are not cheap.
People for trips.
Yep. Yeah. So it's like, this healing is not cheap, so we're, the money, the donations we receive and we'll go after is to help forward research and help, people go heal, right, in one aspect or another. And it's not saying that Ibogaine fixes everyone, nope. But we, like you guys are doing, we want to, be a community of, and that's why this collab with you guys is perfect, because the mindfulness, that's we'll talk about a lot of the stuff that helps keep this stuff moving forward, or helps you prepare for it, is the mindfulness, the breath work, all these daily practices, that guys have, that for me has kept me thinking clearly, and that I do daily.
Well, we would for sure on the Hidden Pearl Studio, on our app, mindfulness, meditation, and movement stuff, love to put up a Robert Gallery page, just so you can include some of your stuff, and we'll have some of this stuff up on there as well. But that would be a great addition to us, is just have you kind of dovetailed some of those practices, and it's kind of an exploration as we work through all that kind of stuff. So, I'd like to take a minute though, because I want to talk about, you mentioned some of the problems in this stuff. And some of it is just the rate in which professional and amateur athletes suffer. And then 35% of athletes struggle with mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression, which only gets compounded when you add the mental or the brain kind of stuff. Retired athletes are 2 to 4 times more likely to develop neurodegenerative diseases due to repeated head trauma. And then suicide rates, are significantly higher. I know like vet rates are 35%-ish or so. I don't know where the athletes are, but significantly is in there. So it's it's a really bizarre kind of parallel there. And up to 80% of retired athletes report difficulty transitional life after sport, which is really true. That's that whole identity piece. I guess the one is, we mentioned it. I don't want to take a too deep dive, but the 2 prongs of that I'd just like you to maybe mention. So just the league, and I know they're in a tough spot because there's liability and blah, blah, blah and all that. And they went through some of that stuff with the TBI and CTE and all those kind of things. So I know they've got a fund and all those kind of things. So kind of what is the league doing? And I know there's new helmets and all that kind of stuff because George gets new stuff all the time. And like he won't wear another helmet anymore, so, and I think he feels like it's really helped some of this stuff, those precautions. They're measuring things in different ways. They seem to be taking the protocols a lot more seriously than they ever have about concussions and doing all those kind of things. So, but on the league end, just looking back, that's kind of one of them. And then the other one is just what you mentioned on your own antidepressants. The whole system seems to be set up that the sicker they can keep most of Americans, then more people make more money. And instead of offering an alternative kind of remedies that they can't patent because they're given to us from the earth, right? Earth Mother, she's right here. And it's a planet because they're plants, you know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff. And so just, it almost feels like this woven conspiracy, that if we can get you sick to start with, so we're going to feed you bad food, give you bad water, get you in shitty jobs in shitty places. And then we're going to get you on some kind of med. And then that med just leads to more meds because it shuts down your body's ability to heal. And they cycle. And then the docs all get paid. Not all, but a bunch of them get paid by the more they prescribe because they get a kickback on the prescriptions and the surgeries and all that kind of shit. So anyway, those are two things that both of them, I think, feed into this, so the culture in the NFL and what the league's doing, and then just our whole pharmaceutical medical complex that just wants to keep people sick. So you can go anywhere in there you want. Yeah. But that's my
I think the league, right, there has been since, and especially since I retired, right, in the past 10 years, there's been a lot of advancements. They're doing a lot of things. So you got to give them credit for putting, right, at the end of the day, we're playing football and there's going to be head trauma, right? 100%. And I think if we can all just, like call it what it is, right? A lot of us, especially in football and other sports, right? The issues are coming from head trauma. Like, love football. I would go back and do it all again, right? All the stuff I've been through, I'd go back and do the same things I did, right? So it's not a blame on someone. Now, how can we, with the things they've done with helmets, how can we do things for players to give them help if they need it, right? When they're done, before they're me, right? So that's part of our goal is to, at some point work with them to like, hey, is this something that, we do more research, right? We got to get it, not a Scheduled I drug, right? Yeah, right. Sure. That's part of it. But it's like the league, I think, is more open-minded to these healing modalities rather than feeding them pills, right? Now that's its own machine, right? It was, for me, right, it was like, it's just masking all the opiates, all that stuff. It's right. And like you said, with, right, on the conspiracy side of it, right? So you can go do ibogaine, this medicine that comes from the earth, right? And do one treatment. Sometimes, my case, a couple, but a lot of guys, one treatment, and all of a sudden it drastically fixes or improves a lot of these things. There's no money to be made in that.
There's no repeat customer coming back every month for a refill. Right.
And so that's part of the issue we're going to deal with as this moves forward. But I think we're just focused on, I'm not going to worry about them right now, either of those entities. I want to, my goal is to help guys. And I hope, right, the league has done a great job of progressing and the stuff they offer us in retirement and the help. So if we can be a part of the research, and show like, hey, this stuff is helping fix or drastically improve these certain things, that the rest of the world will come on board. And I like to believe in my heart that yes, there's the machine that will only do stuff to make money. Yep. I like to believe in my heart there is the rest of us, right? And there are those people that will make this happen at some point, that it's about healing people and not about who's making the money, or how to keep people in the system, like it has been in the past. That will always be there. That system will always be there. Right. But my hope and belief is that we can, if we talk about it enough, and bring these things forward, that we can create a new system, right? That people can have this healing modality that comes, like you said, from Earth, that is free.
Yeah. I'm all in. So like I'm, then the mushroom stuff, those pieces, the MDMA journey, ayahuasca. So I haven't done ibogaine yet though, but it seems like it clearly got to get on my list here a little bit for some of the remaining remnants of all the stuff. So, but just the journeys they take you on with, preparation and coaching and supports, they can make a really radical difference in that kind of way. And so not to be a threat to the system, but at the same time, Robert, I guess the other thing I just want to say is, when I first learned about Athletes for Care and then heard your story, there was kind of a part of me that was like, wow, I felt like a deep sense of relief in a way, both about your journey and how you've come out of this darkness on the other end, but more about you vocalizing this because, we've been working with the vet community for the last 5 years and heard a lot of those stories and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, when you contacted some of your former comrades in NFL or college and they said, wow, I just thought that's the way it was, because that's kind of how we think. And it's such a relief that, somebody of your profile status and the history that you've had is kind of out there clamoring the drum here and being willing to share. Cause I think it makes a huge difference because people can say, maybe I don't need to grind my teeth every single day, or whatever, and all those kind of things. And just finding some healing, new identity after football and just kind of letting some of that kind of stuff go. So, that is all pretty amazing stuff. So, is there other stuff about Athletes for Care that you want to talk about? I have the solution down. I have your 4 points of solution.
Yep.
You want me to read them?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Pioneering athlete mental health by advocating for evidence-based solutions, expanding access to innovative treatments, and driving awareness around the impact of traumatic brain injury and post-career mental health struggles. So, and that's really that's the niche that we feel really, really called to be in, is that this niche both with veterans and with former athletes from the kind of traumas that they've experienced, finding one is just recognizing it. Yep. That's our little motto, is helping vets and athletes discover, and then kind of heal and then move from that point. And so express it. So really important on all those kind of fronts. So anything we haven't talked about, keep it. Sorry, dude. Anything in there that you want to talk a little bit more about?
No, I think it's not just psychedelic assisted therapy. It's like you guys are doing, and that's why I found my community. I lost my football community, my locker room when I retired.
Yep.
I've found it in the veteran community. We think alike. They're my closest friends now. Not that I don't have people from football, but these are the people I've been healing with. So I think merging those two groups, right? We want to be around veterans. Veterans want to be around us. So, that's a lot of what we want to do too, is bring these groups, and that's what's great with you guys, work on bringing athletes and veterans together.
Right.
And then just
easy plug for merging vets and players. So bringing professional athletes and veterans together. So if you want to check them out, MVP is their little tag. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, and
you're going to I think their clinical director, Susie, already contacted you or is. Yeah. So which is great. That'll be a very powerful.
So I think it's educating the public too, that yes, we've had, I love everything I did. I had a great opportunity to play in the National Football League. The things it afforded for me that I learned from it. The reality is that if we can make this game safer and help these guys, right? All athletes don't just go in retirement and they're sitting on the beach and have tons of money and do all these things that kind of what people think of professional athletes, that they have their struggles, just like every person in every household does. But a lot of times it's 10 times more intense, or 100 times or 1,000 times more intense because of the TBI aspect of it. So that's like, hey, we're normal people too. I have struggles. And I've learned through this process now, I don't have to suffer in silence. I did for a long time. A lot of people think that because I'm supposed to be this, right? What I was defined as. Yeah. So no one wants to hear about my problems. But now if we can help, Athletes for Care, we've had outreach. It's been unbelievable. Ex-athletes that have reached out, normal everyday people that have reached out, that heard my story. Went, a gentleman with early onset Parkinson's, right? Because they're studying this medicine also for Parkinson's and MS. Right. Went down and had a life-changing experience, can function better with his Parkinson's. And the story and these stories, that's what keeps me going. Because it's like, wow, it's as tough it is to sit here and talk about this and the things I thought and did. Yep. Before my healing, as tough as that is on my family when they're going to hear this, and we live it every day, right? We're talking to our kids about it, and my wife and I, healing from what I put our family through. If I can help someone else with that, that's my mission and our mission at Athletes for Care, and that's why we're going to do this thing, as fast and as just like we do everything else. We're gonna be aggressive. We're all in, right? We're gonna do it.
Foot on the gas, and we're rolling with it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I love that. So let's see. Okay. Anything else we haven't talked about? You're talking about stories. And so we're all that. I think the really powerful thing for me is that sharing the story and how people can feel like there is maybe a pathway for me, and just making like the entire mental health thing. I mean, like when I was in high school, my mom was diagnosed with really severe depression and kind of the bipolar schizophrenic stuff. And, that's in the 70s. And it was like a hush-hush, 30-day institutionalized, and which she would never talk about. So I don't know exactly what happened there. But super, and like my dad didn't want anybody to ever talk about her, but anybody know, because it was so shameful. So, and I don't think these fall into that category, but like when you start to lose control of how you feel and emotions and being able to make choices and all that kind of stuff, it is kind of shaming to some extent. And then you're not interfacing with your family in the way in which you think you should. And so just all that guilt and shame kind of starts to spiral. So throwing somebody a life preserver in the middle of that.
Yeah, there's so many things. It's not just, like I said, not just psychedelic assisted therapy, right? We've talked about
100%.
I do breath work. We got our kids doing breath work.
So tell us about what are your daily practices now? What's the combo that's working?
Yeah, for me at work, I like to get to my peak state before especially during the school year when my kids get up. So I've learned, I'm currently the past year, I'm 4 a.m. I'm up at 4 a.m.
Yep.
I go down, cold tub first thing. So I do my cold tub, get out of that. I do some breath work, to get myself activated and just kind of meditative breath work.
Yep.
Get done with that. By that time, Becca joins me. She's kind of got on my schedule. We get a workout in. So I've still got Chris Doyle writing programs for me.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah. So a mentor of mine, my old strength coach. So we do our workout, post workout. I still do my hyperbaric chamber every day for an hour. So I get in that. Just different recovery stuff to make my body, because I'm beat up. I had a lot of surgeries, make my body feel better. And then throughout the day, I've learned to take time to get a, 20, 30, 40-minute meditation in, depending on the day, depending on the activation. There's days where going to an event or going to a kid's sporting event that I know will activate me. I'm not fixed completely, but I have the tools now to be like, hey, if I can, calm myself down and be mindful when I'm there and truly enjoy it, rather than like sitting up there like worrying about all the stupid things that go through your head or all the loud noises, because I'm a guy that doesn't like chaos. I don't like loud noises, right? That's part of the brain clarity,
100%.
right? To be able to deal with that. So that's a daily practice for me. And then,
just to plug on mindfulness, the breath work, the consistent breath work and the meditation, it actually rebuilds and reconnects neurological connections. And so that we actually learn how to regulate overall the entire system, so it can calm us down so that we can be present in those moments. People don't appreciate that. So even a 5 to 10 minute set of breath work, you're actually physiologically changing how your anatomy works.
And I'll be the first to say, I thought that stuff was hokey. Before I started all this, I did, I was like, tough guys don't do that. I don't need that. Now I live by it. It is, like you said, it is neurologically, it does that too.
I've got another podcast coming out, Ignacio Garza, 24-year Special Forces Green Beret dude. And we were talking about meditation toward the end of the podcast. And he goes, I sat in those first meetings. They were trying to help me transition out. I said, fuck you. I'm out of here. There's a bunch of soft ass candy motherfucking shit. And he goes, now I meditate every day. Yeah. He goes, if I miss my 20 minutes, he goes, I feel it.
It'll change your life. It changed mine. And I learned too that meditation isn't just sitting on my pillow, crossed legs. I can get out in the mountains. We live in the mountains. That's why I moved here. I can get out on my snowmobile. And I've had times where I can see every single snowflake. I'm in the moment. And my therapist's like, that's meditation, right? Like you're in the moment. I could see every snowflake coming down. So those things,
and we learn how to cross the portal. So there's this portal between the busy, chaotic bullshit and then that state that we're trying to get to. And the more you practice it, the easier it is to transition from that world through the portal into where you're like seeing every tiny little thing. It's such a beautiful state to be in.
It's a great feeling.
Because then everything's like love and beauty.
Yeah.
And
we can go to, like you, I can, now this other thing I've learned is energy, right? I can go into a building or an event or a barbecue and I will say to, I'll say to Becca, time to go, right? Because I can feel the energy is negative. Nothing against anyone that's there, but I can instantly feel, this is something I've learned. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh, it's the energy of the room, right? It's like there's a negative energy, or so that's the things that you recognize.
And do you get that occasionally with people, individuals?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely can go into a room. It's the people that cause it, and it always comes true, because you always learn later, meeting those people, and hey, we're all dealing with shit. I get it.
100%.
But it is, you're like, that's what that was. Cause this is
energetic empath is tough. Cause when you feel shit going into the room, like, and then feel it with people, it's like, you're trying to kind of stay in that place, but it's like a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just continuing to do my practices and every night I get in the sauna before I go to bed. That's
the doorstep to your shamanic healing.
Yeah.
We have more. We have to do another one on energy. So, all right. So, what makes us different? Athlete-led approach, research and innovation, community advocacy. So, all that kind of stuff. And we just talked about that. I had a little question here about mindfulness, and I think I mentioned that about, this whole thing. And I've really experienced this with veterans. So, Viktor Frankl, he's the guy that quoted, psychologist, World War II. So he's in the Nazi camps. But anyway, he came back and survived that. But he said, there's this little thing about the stimulus or the gap in between stimulus and response. And in that gap is our power, because in the gap, we have the ability to choose who we want to be. And I really believe that, because when I get all caught up and I kind of forget who I really want to be, and I get all this stuff sucks me in. But if we can identify that gap, but what I was really getting to is in these moments when we get into this dark spaces, it gets harder and harder to take advantage of that gap, because it doesn't feel like you have a choice. It's so, like, the power of it is so overwhelming. You're just kind of stuck.
Right.
It's like you're in a cave and you can't get out.
Yeah.
So anyway, always balancing that with helping people find enough light that they can start making choices about how they want to show up. So, okay.
You don't have to live, I learned you don't have to live in the chaos all the time, right? And this was the part of being paired with these veterans, and we talk about is like, it doesn't have to, right? The chaos or the activation, right? You don't have to be like now, even in sport, right? It's like, gotta get amped up and right? The calmness now for me is the most dangerous tool there is, right?
Yeah.
All these mindful things, and I can go into an event, I can go to a kids sporting event, not be activated or agitated or all wound up, and I'm cool and calm. I'm sitting up by myself, and I'm literally just enjoying watching my kid do what they're doing. I'm not worried about if they're getting recruited or all these things that the world is pushing on you. It is like, wow, my daughter just recovered from an ACL and is back playing a sport she loves, and she's got a smile on her face. So it's like, if I'm not in chaos, she won't be in chaos. And it's a great feeling. This morning, it was like, I was getting anxious, before we sat down, went and did a little breath work, right? Calm myself down. And it was like, oh, this is a great feeling, because normally the past, it was all the time.
Yeah. There's a guy, George Mumford. I don't know if you followed him at all, but he's kind of the athlete whisperer dude. But anyway, his little company's called the Eye of the Hurricane, and he uses that visualization a lot. And I was doing one of them one time, and I realized as I moved to the Eye of the Hurricane, which is a great place to be, and you're kind of out of all that, I realized that 98% of everything that's in the hurricane I created.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like the more that I realized that, then I could just drop shit out, and then pretty soon you can dissolve the hurricane. You have the power. Right. Not just to step into the eye of the hurricane, but to completely fucking eradicate the hurricane.
It's pretty awesome.
Do you know what I mean? Just by, oh no, and it just goes away. Yeah. So anyway, okay. Let's see. So we're going to post all the website and socials and all that kind of stuff for Athletes for Care. We're going to do all that kind of stuff. And then we've got our veteran groups, which we're supporting. So you got vets, DAV, emerging vets and players. There's all kinds of stuff out there. So we're working with all those guys. We just getting our schedule together too, because we've been sending 6 to 10 vets to every game, home and away. So we're working, I think, with 5 different organizations this year. So we're kind of parceling those out. So we get the vets there, and that's a great thing. And I was going to say too, you mentioned that all revved up and kind of stuff, I think George has just gone through his career, his pre-game meditation for him is really important, but he has his ritual like everybody does. But it's like, there's kind of a calm fury, I guess is what, you know what I mean? Like, it's not this, like what it was in high school kind of shit, and I don't mean that's fun, yeah, but I mean, it's just different, but it's on there, and you got to be able to tap into it in certain situations, but not staying at that point. It's like,
it's great to see a guy like him, and there's plenty of guys doing it now. It's things are so different than they were 15 years ago. Yeah. Knowledge, right? It's every generation, but it's knowledge. There's things that they can use and take advantage of that helps prolong careers, mental health, and helps them deal with, that's stuff I wish I would have known 20 years ago when I was playing.
Okay. We always close with, have you seen any hidden pearls? So the name of the podcast is the Hidden Pearls Podcast, because we believe, like that little oyster, everybody has a hidden pearl within them to make the world a better place. So clearly you are one of our hidden pearls. You've come out and you're flashing your brilliancy all over. But what for you right now is kind of a hidden pearl? And it could be this, or it could be watching your daughter play and smile. I mean, it's all good. But like, what are a couple things that are giving you hope right now?
I think being able to talk about my experience and see, not only have other people reach out to us for help and healing, but the healing it does for me to sit and talk about this, as dark as it was, as painful as it was, it helps me to deal with it. Cause the stuff I've done is not a magic pill. It doesn't fix everything and everything's great. Right?
Still got to do work.
And so my hidden pearl is moving forward, my identity is to help people that were in my position. Right. And if you are good with, it's hard to talk about suicidal thoughts, right? But it's something now that doesn't, it's still emotional, but it's not something that's in my world. So I don't get nervous talking about it because it's like those things are gone. Right. And I work very hard to do that. So the hidden pearl for me is definitely, helping others heal, and the outreach we get of people that have heard my story and like, wow, thank you for sharing that. It's like this whole macho thing. We're supposed to hide it and no one should know about our struggles. This whole thing we've been taught, right? And to be able to open up and talk about it, help others, help yourself, and be as little as I'm not a social media guy. I'm not I got away from my, the brand. I don't have a brand, right? All these things that, people have created now, and it's great. But this is about one thing. It's about my healing and the fact that I can help others find their avenue to healing and not suffer in silence like so many people do. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to say that's the only one I got is, just helping people out from underneath that and just see that there are avenues. And if we can destigmatize stuff so people will come forward, and they got to have a support group to be there, like the hockey rink, and just help people be in that space. And so that's really what we want to be about as well, is trying to help folks with that. So, we know how they can contact that. So we always do a donation to a charity chosen by our guest. I think I know who you're going to choose, but I just want to offer that. And so we're going to do a charity donation. And so who would you like us to make the money donation to this time?
Well, can we do our own?
100%. Everybody does.
All right. Yes. I would love it to be the Athletes for Care.
Yeah. And so we kind of chat with the family and all that kind of stuff. So we want to do a $10,000 donation just to kind of get a start and see where that kind of fits in. And I know, it takes a lot more than that kind of stuff, but, we're really grateful for your journey and what you're doing, and really believe in it. And just, it's like right in the valley of what we want to be a part of. So we're really grateful for your story and for you taking time today and being with us. And, hopefully we can, help spread your message and see where this leads all of us.
Man, I'm speechless that, I know that's the type of people you are, and that's why you do this, but, I wasn't expecting that. And it's, I appreciate that very much. And it's, like you guys, we're just trying to help people, and it takes money to do that. But, I didn't see that coming at all, but so thank you guys very much.
You're very welcome. Robert, I've been in that situation where I've seen the darkness in people's eyes, and then there's that moment when the light's back. And like, if you've never been there with somebody, it's just like, to the extent that we have the ability to help just a few more people do that. It's life-changing for us to be a part of it. And I know it's life-changing for them to be in that moment. And everybody's a little bit different. It's a tough, rugged journey, but that's the journey we want to be on with people.
Yep. And I'm the same way. It's like you said, and my family lived it. We still live it. And if we can work together, right? Like this is perfect partnership. The different veteran groups we're working with, it's, if we can all bring ours together, right? We're all one team. We can help a lot of people and keep pushing this thing forward and be in the light.
All right. Well, thank you. Very inspiring. We're excited about it. Any final words? And if somebody's listening to this and they feel like they're still kind of in the cave, what are you going to tell them? What should they do?
The biggest thing for me is, I wanted to decide that I wanted to heal, right? And I needed to learn it was okay, right? I would, like, all my friends were like, you could have called me, you could have done this. And I knew that, right? But for me, the first step is like, reach out, right? Like, as dark as it can get, you think you don't want to burden all these things that are going through your head, right? If you're in that moment, talk to somebody, make that phone call, because there's tons of people, your friends that are there for that. And you won't be judged. Right? Like, it's the true people in your life. I can make calls now. There's days I have a bad day or have a bad thought or this. I can call. I have my list of people now, where in the past I would sit in the car and like, I don't want to burden them. Right. And now I know that's how we heal and otherwise it turns into a cycle in your head. So make that first step. Whatever it is, talk to someone, talk to your spouse, talk to your friend, take that first step and see how great it feels, at least in the moment, to release some of that.
Yeah. And so on the app and our podcast, if you want to hit us back, we have all kinds of resources. So if you just reach out, and in fact, I still have like people that they'll DM me every so often because we chatted and they were in a space, and all that kind of stuff. And so just it's okay. So we just want to make sure that we're there for you. So, Will, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for hosting us in this beautiful, beautiful facility. You kind of called it a barn or a big garage. I can't remember, but it is definitely all of that. So it's very cool. And, the energy that is present with all of this feels really good. So I can just see someone that is enjoying life and taking it all in. So that's a great thing. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming out and
okay, man.
making me a part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother.